Go to room 217. Thomas is waiting for you.
Can't you tell? I'm Tom Scar, the tank person.
Oh, right. Thomas is waiting for me. I see.
So you know of my good friend, Thomas the Train.
I don't think that's what he's called.
Turns out he's a big fan of your videos, so he sent me here to give you a game he got stuck in his safety valve.
Well, I mean, if the great Thomas the Train wanted to give it to me, it must be good.
Oh, it is, but it's not here yet. Give it a sec.
What the hell is that on your head?
It's my short stumpy funnel.
I need to stop asking questions.
You think that's cool? You should see my short stumpy dome.
I'm leaving now.
No, wait! Don't go!
Why? I'm not picking that up.
You have to pick it up.
But it smells of poo.
Yeah.
Okay, did any of you guys know that Thomas the Tank Engine had a game on PS1 exclusive to Japan?
Yeah, I knew.
It came out of a long hole on your head. I wasn't asking you.
Thomas the Tank Engine is a train. He's blue. He has a face. Thanks for coming to my seminar. I mean, come on, everyone knows who Thomas the Tank Engine is. He's bloody everywhere. You cannot escape the tank. And that's quite an amazing achievement considering he's in a children's TV show where none of the train's faces ever actually move except for their eyes, almost like they're in some sort of coma. I watched Tom the Tank absolutely religiously as a kid, specifically the Ringo Starr narration era and early Michael Angelis era before he started phoning it in during the late 90s, but I could have done without the bullying around being born with the same name as the most unlikable character in the show. Thanks for that, guys. All of the Jameses of the world appreciate it.
Also, my girlfriend's eldest daughter had her own name for the show when she was a toddler. Thomas the Tankin Dankin. I just think that's funny.
The original run of the show from 1983 I still find to be very entertaining and charming kids' TV. It's relaxing, looks authentic and unique with the brilliant use of sculptures and models, and there's plenty of good moral lessons for the kids watching at home. Well, most of the time. The 1945 onwards books that the show was based on were written by a man known as the Reverend W. Awdry, and since the writing of these books, many have looked back at the original series and noticed some strong political undertones, such as the dismissal and threat against anything new for the steam trains like diesel fuel and air travel, and even subtext hinting at authoritarianism around the home of the trains on the island of Sodor, and it's not hard to see why. There are some outright dark and disturbing ideas around the economy of Sodor and how the workforce were treated if they didn't do their job perfectly in the eyes of the ruthless dictator that was the Fat Controller. In many ways, the trains were treated a little bit like slave labour, being forced to work whenever they were awake, being sold back and forth between different people to suit their needs, not being paid, and being punished in the most brutal methods possible for barely doing anything that bad to warrant it. A train goes a little bit too fast and comes off the rails a few times, take off his wheels, turn him into a generator, and let him watch his friends enjoy their lives from behind a wall until he dies. What if a train gets too old and nobody wants to buy them? Don't give them a retirement package. Instead, just throw the living and breathing train with thoughts and feelings in the scrapyard. Or, you know, lock him up in a shed for about 10 years and let Mother Nature bury him alive. A train decides to stay in a tunnel for a little bit because he doesn't want to get wet from the rain. Brick him inside the tunnel and never let him out. Again, while being able to see all of his friends enjoying themselves as they chug along past him. This show was outright sadistic.
Perfect for a kid's game on the PlayStation, right? Yes, this is indeed a real thing that exists. This is a 2000 Japanese exclusive PS1 game of our favourite Tankin Dankin, and it's called, roughly in English, Kid Station Kikansha Thomas to Nakamatachi. I think. At least we definitely know it says Kid Station and not Babe Station. This game was lovingly donated to me by a guy at Too Many Games 2018 in Philadelphia, and I did write down the guy's name, but I later lost it. Sorry about that. I suppose that's a good thing, really, because if this game turns out to be completely horrible, you wouldn't want me to know your name.
Alright, here we go. What does that say? Eh? What's this? Ban pesto? Why would I want to do that? Oh, okay, no time for questions. It's time for an FMV intro. I mean, I've seen worse. It looks completely okay to me. You've got the classic theme tune. The characters are all here. It's a bit grainy and pixely here, but it certainly looks like the show. Well, except for Thomas's face. A few years ago, a man jumped in front of Thomas, and he hasn't been the same since. Thomas, was that you? Oh god, now what the hell's going on? You're barely in the game for 5 seconds, and the babies this game was meant for are thrown into a random slideshow in case they didn't hit start the moment they begin the game. Yeah, I'm just gonna skip this, there's nothing really going on here, and would you look at that? We're at the station, ready to hopefully play some kind of game. As you can see, we're in Knapford.
Because that's where all the children get kidnapped for.
And all I know about Japanese PS1 games is that the circle button is actually used as a confirmation button instead of the X button, which we're all used to in the filthy West. So, I mean, I don't know what the piss any of this means, so how about we just hit circle and see what happens? Did I do a thing? Was the thing good? You know, I'm honestly starting to prefer this over Ringo's voice.
What are you doing here? Can't you see?
Okay, well, even though I have absolutely no clue what is being yelled at me or what any of this means, what I do know is that I need to find the correct symbol by hitting the button that comes out of Thomas's funnel. And that's it.
Oh, thank you, sir, said Thomas.
Back at the menu, okay, we've seen what happens if I press circle, so what about if I hit square? Oh, well, we get this lovely image of James here. James murdered my dog. We also get to see the fat controller a little more clearly, and there he is, looking bloody horrendous. What else is going on in the station, though? Let's have a look. Well, we have this guy over here licking a poster of duck, but his head is covering the U, so it looks like
Johnson.
We also have this guy over here who's doing a milady to the kid down here, and this guy here who's... I don't know what he's doing. Anyway, let's click on James. Because that is me. Ah, right, okay, so we count the people and hit the button with the correct number next to it. And that's it. We're done. This game is hard. Let's hit the square button again and see where we end up. Oh lord, oh dear. There's a fat controller option. I can't wait to see what that has in store for us. But first, I just have to bring your attention to this man hiding behind James. What is going on there? Anyway, the fat controller minigame takes us to his office. Ah, yes, sorry, he's not called that everywhere else other than the UK, is he?
Sir Topham Hatt.
The fat controller.
Sir Topham Hatt.
The fat controller.
Sorry, the Sir Topham Hatt minigame takes us to his office. And he's in a bit of a pickle because despite being the director of every train on the island of Sodor, he's forgotten what his main train looks like. We pick the correct one, Sir Topham Hatt does a little... And then we get a lovely image of Percy being crushed by a boulder. What else can we click on this screen then? Oh! Clock! The clock itself is a character. Now I've seen everything. We have to pick the correct time with the buttons, but I can't read what the hell the fat controller is asking me, so I'm just gonna have to guess. What? Yes! I got it right!
Wait. He's a train conductor that can't read the time.
Oh look, now we get an even lovelier image of two trains about to collide into each other at full speed. I told you, this show was messed up. Moving on, we now get to click on the poster of Duck, and we have to match the correct halves of this image together, but I'm getting a little bit curious. Can you fail this game? Can you fail Thomas the Tankin Dankin on PS1? Well, I got that one wrong, and that one wrong, so apparently not. It just keeps going until you get it right. But you do make Sir Topham Hatt very sad. But I don't know why he's so sad. I mean, if he knows what his own trains look like, then why is he asking me to help him? Oh great, another violent image of train abuse. This time it's a train careening to its inevitable death.
Why are these loading screens in a kid's game? What's this saying to the audience at home? Oh, don't worry kids, next time you're on a train, you might not even be on the rails!
Anyway, now we happen to be done with this screen, so we can scan across to screen number 2. Ooh, looky cookie, more trains. My favourite kind of public transport. I can only assume then this means there's more games, so let's give this one a click.
Hello!
So it looks like Edward is about to join in with the fun. Oh god, what's happening? No, what's going on? What am I doing? Is this a race on? Oh man, no time to talk, we're hitting buttons now, hitting buttons! Why is this person's hand so small on the PS1 controller? Is that how I should be doing this? For Christ's sakes, watch out, Thomas, you're about to fly off the track! Oh, no worries, we slowed down alright. It looks like we won the race.
Hey, do you reckon on the island of Sodor, if a train loses a race against another train, it gets thrown into the scrapyard? I was kidding!
Alright, next minigame. Time to click on Edward's face. I'm really not sure what to make of any of this. Is this another race? I don't know, but the game wants me to pick somebody, so I guess I'll pick Henry because it looks like he'll kill me if I don't.
Henry slept with my wife.
Oh, wait, no, it was a game where we had to pick the longest engine. Yeah, I totally knew that's what we had to do. I didn't guess that. It only seems appropriate now to click on the Henry's face minigame on the main menu, see where that takes us. And there he is now. Whoa, man, nice breeds. Okay, now we appear to have Duck, Percy, and Edward, but I don't know what to do since all the buttons have stopped working. I've got no prompts, I can't pause or exit. What's going on? Henry, help me. Oh, wait a second. Is this a pick the train that was swapped over game? That makes more sense now. Well, yeah, that's Toby obvs, and then we get another delightful image for the loading screen.
Thomas has cholera.
Off to the Gordon minigame. Blah, I hate Gordon. My least favorite character. I hated him as a kid and I still hate him today. I mean, look here, he's already angry at me and I haven't even done anything yet. Oh, right, he's about to drown. Well, that makes sense. I suppose I'd be angry about that too. All we need to do is pick the correct track shape to help out Satan incarnate as a train, and away we go. Onto the James minigame next, and believe it or not, this was the first minigame I actually got completely wrong. And not because I didn't understand the text or the object of the game, I just had to match the face on the body, but I swear to God this was Thomas's face, but it was in fact actually Percy's face. What kind of shit is that about? Am I that inept at Thomas the Tankin' Dankin' on the PlayStation?
What do you think the crime rate on Sodor is like?
We get booted back to the main menu, and just when I thought we'd loop back around to the first screen we started on, no way, there's another page of minigames. This is just spoiling me now. We get to explore around the docks for a bit as it appears, but overall, different verse, same as the first. Well, except for this. We click on the Thomas minigame and it is yet another game I failed miserably at. I can't remember the last time I saw a difficulty curve this steep. Not even joking, I failed so badly at it that I didn't even get a second chance. The game just ended when I got it wrong. Now come on. I like to think I'm a reasonable boy, so when I say this is majorly unfair because this symbol looks like it's telling me to smack the buttons as fast as possible, yet the game punishes you for doing that, would you agree that isn't my fault?
And you can shut up, Honky the Tonk Eagle!
I mean, I cannot be happy with myself if I let Thomas on PS1 beat me, so I'm gonna try again, and this time I figured out what you're supposed to do. Instead of following the on-screen prompt that babies are definitely going to look at, just ignore that and hit the button once to start filling Thomas's tank, and then a second time to stop when it reaches the red mark. I do wish that was a little more clear, and by the way, if you don't press the button a second time, Thomas wets himself from his face. Ugh, back to the menu again, and now we have to move on to the cheeky little Bill and Ben flower pot
Trains.
What on earth could they possibly have in store? Oh, it's another counting game. Well, I'm pretty pro at them by this point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, suck on that with your working mouths. Another James minigame is next on the agenda, and you have to pick the correct animals and objects hiding in the trucks he's carrying. Easy enough. And then we get another Sir Topham Hatt minigame.
Yeah!
Well, more accurately, it isn't a game. We in fact get to create our very own train. We get to pick a body, some paint, a face, and even a funnel. Not gonna lie, this is really cool, especially if you were a major Thomas fan back in the day. I made a train called Gerard Way, and he's an angsty young engine full of hatred that nobody understands. And I think his funnel is overcompensating for something. Also, he sounds like this. Or you could always make the ugliest thing imaginable, like this lovely chap. Off to yet another minigame that this time is actually a minigame. So what do we do here? We need to wait for the crane to match with the correct object over the truck and then hit the circle button to drop it in. Pretty difficult stuff. I mean, what else can I say about it other than I get shown yet another image of inhumane train brutality when I'm done?
By the way, the game is still going. I'm actually kind of amazed. I mean, out of all the other toddler games I've played in the past, I wasn't expecting any more than 15 minutes plus of total game time from this, but to my surprise, it just keeps on going. It's got too much love to give. I can't take the love that Thomas the Tanking is danking in me.
We've got yet another page of minigames to do, this time in the quarry. We've got a jigsaw completion game, a match the image against the dirty train game, a memory game when you need to pick the correct train that will reach the station that you saw earlier, Fast and Furious 6, and this game where we control Percy getting chased by falling boulders.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Hell yeah, I'm not gonna touch any buttons, I wanna see what happens. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Boom! Slam dunk! Oh yes, Percy is down and then, ugh! No! Oh my god, this horrific boulder from one of the scariest episodes of Thomas and Friends appears out of bloody nowhere and traps us on the tracks forever while staring into our very being.
Oh, what? You don't know that episode? The one where Rusty is convinced there's a boulder that's deliberately trying to smash him and all of his friends because they're drilling into a mountain it's sat on top of, and the boulder somehow manages to get off the mountain, chase the trains around, roll uphill, get behind Rusty when it was rolling in front of him a second ago, and the episode ends with the Fat Controller suggesting there's a paranormal force living inside the boulder and the boulder has a face? And here's a picture of a dying traction engine!
There are 2, there's 4, there's 6, there are 8. Oh my god, I can't believe it. There's yet another page of minigames to go through. We start off with this one, with a game that requires basic understanding of Japanese that I clearly really don't have, so I got every single guess wrong, and yeah, alright, I think I'm done now. I'm sure you've all got the idea by this point. There is a lot to play with in this game, but as you've seen, a lot of it is exactly the same, or I just don't bloody understand any of it. As we go on, there's some more counting games, more memory games, more correct path games, more creative games like this colouring thing here. More mashing button games, more matching games, more correct timing games. What more can I say about each of these games as individual entities anyway? What do you want from me? They're made for babies, I can't add anything else. Besides, the animal noises distort the audio levels.
Saying that, though, consider me surprisingly impressed. Yeah. Consider me surprisingly impressed with this mother chugger. I mean, yeah, it's simplistic and way too easy for any kids over the age of 2, but when I think back to other games I've played in the past that are meant for kids, especially games that are made for a slightly older audience, like Tweenies Game Time, this is better in pretty much every single way, and this was meant for an older audience.
The graphics and music are much better done and way more appealing. There's a crap ton more minigames to play with and things to see and discover. When replaying certain minigames, they actually change aspects of it so it isn't the same exact thing twice to keep it interesting for kids on replays, and even though it's all in Japanese, it's that accessible and understandable that even I could play it without any Japanese knowledge whatsoever. Helped along by the fact that you never use a D-pad, only the face buttons. And in fact, when this game first came out, it even came bundled with a specifically designed giant button pad, so the extremely young children this was aimed at couldn't possibly get it wrong. And it was wipeable, in case Thomas made them sick. I mean, look, in the menus for this game, you even get tiny little character biographies. I can't fault this game for the target audience, it's adorable. Well, I mean, I assume they're character biographies. They could be eulogies for all I know.
The next question is, why was it Japanese exclusive? Because I really don't know. Oh, brother, is that the time? I'm eating.
Percy!
Just look what you've done to our breakfast. Now I shall have to cook some more. She banged the door.
Did any of you stop and think for a second that Breath of the Wild may not have been a 10 out of 10?
Unpopular opinions. I have them, you have them, we all have them. They're like bacteria. And just like bacteria, at some point you're going to spread them all over somebody else and make them sick and miserable.
Look, I'm really not trying to go out of my way to upset anyone, that's not why I make videos, but you have to admit, unpopular opinions online are basically the equivalent of pond scum. No one likes it, yet it all rises to the top and everybody sees it. For whatever reason, we all just love a good trash fire when people claim to be above the filth and know more than the majority, but that is not what I'm doing today. Look at me. I know dingle dangle. I just love sharing my subjective views on things and seeing how people react, so before I regret what I'm doing, sit back, get some tea, and join me in my dirty bathwater.
I can sell this!
As I give you even more of my unpopular gaming opinions.
First off, does anyone else here think that Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are the best versions of Pokemon Gen 1? Because I do.
I remember when Pokemon first came out all those years ago, how all the children played, how they all laughed, how they all kicked each other to the floor when they lost, how they used scissors on the cards of other kids they didn't like. Look, I even have this card here that I stole over 17 years ago, and you can tell I stole it because the guy it belonged to used to hole punch his cards so they knew they were his. I don't even remember the guy's name, but I remember his cardboard. That's what Pokemon did to friendships back in the day. And so unsurprisingly, I was never allowed to play the Game Boy games when I was younger, but one of my cousins was, and so I sneakily borrowed Pokemon Yellow from him, played it on my GBA, and was hooked ever since. The problem with Pokemon Yellow, Blue, and Red, though, is that for the classics that they are, going back to them today is like reading really old issues of Time magazine. You probably shouldn't. It's as basic of an RPG as you can get, and that was fine for the time, but remaking the world of Gen 1 for the Switch took every correct avenue. It's the same story and same locations, but with a huge graphical overhaul, better sounding music, and yeah, the random wild Pokemon battles were gone, but pray tell, what the hell is wrong with that decision? Because now, not only can you physically see the Pokemon so you can control when you want to fight instead of being interrupted every 10 seconds, but it makes completing the Pokédex 100 times less of a ball ache since you know exactly what you should be looking for before wasting time in a battle screen for the millionth Zubat. Leave me alone, damn you! Don't make me get the blankie out! Oh, what? There's no battling wild Pokemon at all in this version? Again, who cares? The newer games are way better at battling than Gen 1 is nowadays, and so instead you get a really fun catching minigame that rewards more XP based on timing and positioning with throwing a Pokeball, with status effects you can control, all the spare Pokemon you catch then being traded for a load of stat boosting candies for your current Pokemon, and you still get the dozens upon dozens of trainer and gym leader battles anyway. If anything, this system staves off the repetition for a remake, and by halving the focus between battling and catching, they kept the original goal of Gen 1 Pokemon consistent despite the differences. It's welcoming to brand new players and smaller kids especially that are just getting into games, and is way more interesting than original Gen 1's version of simply giving you hundreds of battles repeated ad nauseum without everything else supplementing it like in the newer games. And let's not forget the epic Mega Evolutions which can save your life in more difficult battles, and hey, the ability to do all the situational moves in the overworld like water skimming, tree cutting, lighting up dark caves and fast travel flying all linked to your singular starter Pokemon was a genius decision, saving up your space and not forcing you to carry around a Pokemon that you would only use for a singular purpose in the overworld.
That though? Pfft, that was tame. You haven't caught my bacterial opinion disease yet, so let's crank it up a notch. Do any of you remember Dark Souls?
What if I told you that the gameplay in Dark Souls, more specifically the combat system, how you interact with the enemies, the bosses and the world around you, isn't actually that great? And I say this with all the love in my veins, which are basically withered. Dark Souls and Bloodborne are both in my top 5 video games ever made. But when I took a step back to think of why that is exactly, I realised it wasn't the combat system on its own. You want to know what you do mostly in Dark Souls? You get to an enemy or boss, equip a magic catalyst or melee weapon, dodge a series of attacks or use a shield on the rare occasion to block or parry, and then hit back once or twice when it's safe. I mean, yeah, if you want to be spindly specific, there's a little more than that, but as a whole, that's mostly what you as a player are doing to engage with the game mechanics. Like, if you compare this to Bayonetta or something with the insane amounts of combos, situational attacks, different kinds of enemy behavior that requires jumping or dodging at the very last second to slow down time, incredibly fast ranged attacks to tie into combos, finishing moves, all that stuff. Dark Souls and Bloodborne don't actually have much going on aside from strong and light attacks that string together over and over again, a universal dodge, and a shield that mostly doesn't even work with bosses. It's the atmosphere, the level design, the vast array of playstyles and character builds, the replayability, the visuals, the music, the epic encounters and tense, horrific standard exploration in pitch black, grimy corridors of unspeakable terror. All that stuff works in tangent with how hard the enemies hit you to almost give you the sensation of a survival horror game, helped along by the huge amount of weight and planning to your attacks and the limited risk and reward healing system. Dark Souls and Bloodborne are the prime examples of games that are way more than the sum of their parts. How you control your character is one thing, but it's how that is built around everything else around you that makes the game so brilliant. And that is also why games like Lords of the Fallen fall down. The Lords fell down. Lords of the Plagiarists!
I don't like the music in Metal Gear Rising.
And with that comment alone, I'm absolutely certain I've made some enemies, because almost every other person I've spoken to about the OST in Metal Gear Rising Revengeance have nothing but the highest praise for it, or are just okay with it being there. I've never had anyone agree with me when I say I find it irritating. I'm talking more about the vocal tracks, by the by, and it's so popular to the point where if you search Metal Gear Rising on YouTube, not only will Metal Gear Rising OST be the first search term, but even Metal Gear Rising Revengeance OST will be just below it. People love this soundtrack so much that they're willing to type in the entire shitting name of Metal Gear Rising Revengeance in order to be specific enough to find the soundtrack for Metal Gear Rising. I'm saying Metal Gear Rising a lot, aren't I? Maybe I should Metal Gear. Shut up! I enjoy the game fine enough as a game, but yeah, as far as the soundtrack goes, nope, I'm not a fan at all. I've tried listening to it in the context of the game and outside of the game, and I can't stand it each and every time. I also think the lyrics to some of the songs are totally bloody intelligible, but then again, that may be because I'm deaf as a door handle.
Hello!
The vocal sound is way too whiny for me and switches between phlegmy screeching and twangy singing a little too abruptly for my ear to get accustomed to it. And where I like the idea of mixing more metal sounds with techno beats and aggressive synths, what I don't like is how this soundtrack smashes them together like a car crash. It just sounds like a wall of noise with too much happening at once for me.
Unfortunately though, like your sense of humour, your taste in music is one of the most subjective things you could bring up in a video about opinions. I mean, one man's ear candy is another man's ear wet fart. But I reckon I can get the unpopular opinion bacteria spreading again with my next opinion that Zelda Hyrule Warriors is really boring. There's a disease.
Can we all agree on one thing for a second? That being that Hyrule Warriors is really stupid. Like, it's so stupid that if it were a person, it would think Cooking Mama was a video game about cooking your own mother. Good, glad we got that out of the way. In which case, with it being so stupid and looking like it completely goes all out with its stupidity, why did I find it painfully boring to play? It looked unbelievably cool when I saw trailers, but when I finally got around to it, I felt like I had no impact on anything around me. The enemies, no matter how big or aggressive, all felt like paper bags being blown around with my repetitive combos and special moves. I know this is basically Dynasty Warriors, so I guess that means I wouldn't enjoy that either, but all I found myself doing for hours and hours was running to the objective, clearing out waves and waves of sword fodder, getting to the main commander, doing the same thing, and then moving on until a boss. And this would be fine for me if there was any depth, but if there was supposed to be some here, I couldn't find it. It felt so damn mundane to me, so mindless, like I could play it with my eyes half closed. It didn't matter if I was switching between different characters either. They all feel different to play, sure, but it restricts them with a game that is still about doing the same thing over and over again. Where it's amazing fun and real engaging for like 10 minutes, where you see the special moves activate for the first time and laugh your gizzard off as you essentially fix all the problems of your entire army by coughing over your enemies. After doing it 20 more times over with not much else changing, I kinda just wanted to stop. What didn't help either was the original Wii U version running pretty badly when that came out, and then the supposed definitive edition on Switch not running that well either. I mean, it was an improvement, but...
While we're moaning at Nintendo though, let's pair them up with Sony for a second, because you know something? I reckon that Nintendo and Sony could benefit from copying Microsoft a little bit more.
Anyway, yeah, when I say that Nintendo and Sony can take a page or two from Microsoft's books, that sounds a little bit redundant. These three companies have rode off and on each other so much over the years, they're practically raw, but in today's market, something I didn't realise about Xbox is that despite their most recent console being a bit of a mess in my opinion, Microsoft more than any other company, even since the 360, have been pretty consistent with providing a decent level of backwards compatibility. Did you know you can play a surprising amount of classic Xbox titles dating back from as early as late 2001 on a 2017 Xbox One X? I didn't until I started researching it, because I didn't even realise you could play classic Xbox games on the 360. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind. But how cool! 3 generations worth of games being playable in one place. That is something that the PS4 and Switch wishes it could do. It's even backwards compatible with useless games nobody cares about. Wanna play, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb? Or Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy? Well, you can on the Xbox One. It was this news that actually inspired me to replace a load of my PS2 games with classic Xbox titles for the sake of recording some of them at the best possible quality, because aside from emulating on PC, which barely works a lot of the time, there's no real way to experience PS2 games in decent quality aside from the PS3 HD collections of a few set titles. The PS4 doesn't allow you that, aside from a few downloadable PS2 ports on the PS Store, and when the first builds of the PS3s went out that could play PS2 games, most of them blew up. You can't even play PS3 on PS4 unless via a PlayStation Now subscription. And as for the Switch, yeah, I know it's a portable cartridge system, but if Nintendo are able to port Wii U games onto it and charge you the exact same amount of money it would have been when it was brand new, and Doom 64 is coming out for it, along with the NES and SNES games on the online system, why not include more GameCube and Wii games on the store, or Nintendo 64 games? When it comes to the Wii as well, the gyro controls would be way better than the infrared sensor motion pointer anyway, and look, I'm not going to pretend I understand how consoles work or the system infrastructure, but you're telling me there's no way at all we can purchase PS1 games on the PS4 store and play them on it. This can't be run on this. Especially when PS1 games in particular are incredibly easy to emulate everywhere else.
I don't get it! And while I don't get it, I don't get it! I don't get it!
I don't know how many other ways I can say this without coming across as a floppy, but I'll try it once more. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a great game, but I just do not think it's a 10 out of 10 by any stretch of the imagination. This is without a doubt one of the most engrossing open world games I've ever played, and that nails the idea of total freedom better than any game has before it. The combat is good fun, the way to approach enemy encounters and puzzles are practically endless with the ability to physically manipulate the world, the sheer volume of secrets and surprises is amazing, the bosses are great even when they're pretty easy, the visuals and the music are spectacular, the strategic tension behind figuring out a path for your next vertical climb is great, the puzzles and the shrines are good, this stuff is all absolutely excellent, but if you ask me, it's all bent and twisted around a really uninteresting story that's delved out with a badly voice acted Zelda in totally ineffectual scenes.
Don't you see? There's nothing more I can do.
And once again, a totally mute and gormless Link, even though they build the story around him and how he's supposed to be a legendary hero.
Do you really remember me?
A lock-on camera that is very temperamental and doesn't let you switch targets without unlocking and relocking, which is useless in groups, a slow-mo spam attack system that activates whenever the hell it feels like, before, during, or even after an attack happens, side quests that don't really go anywhere, don't reward you anything too spectacular, and don't even compensate you with XP, which ends up wasting your time, and most annoyingly, the weapon degradation. I'm fully aware there are supporters of this system all over the internet, and to be honest, I'm glad you like it. Good for you. Pat on your head with a loaf of bread. But after I've conquered a massive task or finished a very difficult battle, only to be rewarded an extremely powerful weapon that only lasts about 40 hits in total before breaking forever, I don't feel like I've progressed. Know why? Because I have no clue when or where I should use it without wasting it. There's weapon durability systems which are totally fine to include, but then there's weapons that feel like you're attacking with literal twigs for how fragile they are. This goes beyond finding more weapons and forcing you to experiment as well, since you don't find decent weapons often enough to justify experimenting with them. This kind of argument favors games like Uncharted a lot more, since you have very small inventory space, but are constantly finding replacement weapons on the fly in chaotic battles and can even choose to keep them on you if you run out of ammo. I mean, there's crafting and food in Breath of the Wild, so why can't we just craft repair materials and rely on needing to find them to look after our favorite weapons that we earned ourselves, instead of just having them break after a few minutes when it took us a lot to get them in the first place? When I found a tricky treasure chest or beat a really difficult boss encounter, I didn't feel like, oh my god, I found a really powerful weapon I can use. I thought, oh great, another powerful weapon that I don't want to use because I don't want to break it. I mean, the Master Sword in the game is a weapon that you can keep on recharging, so why can't they just have that with every other weapon, or make the weapon pool smaller and have your favorite weapons be repairable so you feel like you can use it but you won't lose them forever?
And while I'm on one, you know what? I don't even like the European box art that much either. I mean, the US one, that's cool. That's stylish. This looks like you caught Link in the middle of him weeing off the edge of a cliff. And by the way, I don't think God of War's a 10 out of 10 either.
Man, oh man, you think my Breath of the Wild review like to dislike ratio was a little off? Take a look at this sunshine.
Yikes, that's a big uh-oh from me.
Where I still loved Breath of the Wild despite what I perceived to be flaws, God of War 2018 was a game that I enjoyed fine enough despite the flaws. Yeah, I just didn't click with this one as much as everyone else did. In terms of the characters and their relationships, I loved it, with this being my favourite incarnation of Kratos to this day. But with everything else, it felt like a step down from the previous classic hack and slash games. And hey, that's when the story wasn't being interrupted, like when your son is having an angry emotional outburst at you because you left him for hours and hours on his own, only for him to then start talking in tutorial speak less than 30 seconds later. Even if you take away the fact that compared to the original God of War from 2005, you interact or fight with nowhere near as many Norse gods and monsters over the Greek gods and monsters, and take away the fact that you fight the same goddamn troll over and over again with different colours as a poor excuse for a boss battle, when they could have used the endless sea of Norse creatures to fill those places in and kept them as regular enemies, and take away the fact that throughout the 30+ hour adventure you're being built up to how terrible and destructive Odin and Thor are for everything you're doing, and then after a disappointing series of bosses you're then left alone with a teaser for the fight you should have had before the game just stops, when you get a build-up and satisfyingly epic conclusion in the original PS2 game. Yeah, taking away all of that, It's just not as smooth to play as I think it could have been. It's fine, but if you ask me, it's got a lot of problems. I get it, they wanted to give you a more mature story right behind Kratos' head so you're able to feel all the emotional weight right in your face, but when you try and combine this level of free-form movement and 360-degree dodge rolling with enemies surrounding you with a fixed perspective third-person camera, it causes its own sea of issues, all done for the sake of it just being another third-person action game because that's what people do now. This radar isn't enough here. I want to see more of what's going on around me. I can't plan my next move, I can barely see anything massive all around me that the radar doesn't help me avoid until the last minute when it's already too late. I can't immediately turn around by moving the left stick in the direction I want to go and have to use a delayed quick turn instead. Why can't I be locked into a strafe only when I'm aiming with the axe? Why do I need a strafe when I'm just fighting regularly? Other games have done this just fine, and even God of War itself did it better. You can't even sprint without unlocking the camera and moving the camera in the direction you want to sprint. Which then means if you're locked onto a very fast boss and need to make sure you see everything they do, you can't actually sprint while locking onto them. Isn't that cramped? It's just so damn cramped for such a fast-paced and brutal game. Oh, well, except when you're stuck in the myriad of non-skippable walking scenes and climbing scenes that don't test you, don't add to the atmosphere, don't add to the characters, and then allow you to move again, but through train track level design that even when becoming a little bit more open, doesn't trust you to jump at your own accord. You know, like you used to be able to do. Which means that platforming is gone, jump dodging and jump combos are gone. Oh look, another stone monster boss. Oh look, a boss that's just a stronger version of every other basic enemy in that area. What?
Believe it or not though, I still liked the game more than I didn't. I just wanted to point out the things that I didn't understand about it for the sake of this video. If you want more of a detailed opinion on what I think about the game as a whole, then check my review up there for more details. Anyway, could this video about how much of a bastard I am with unpopular gaming opinions get any more inflammatory? Well, I don't know.
This one is short and to the point. I don't mind Splatoon, but I've tried multiple times to get into Splatoon 1 and 2, but just can't stand how slow your movement speed is. Yes, I know, the whole point is that you turn into a squid and use that mechanic to move around the map faster while refilling your ink, but you know what I like to do in a shooting game? Move and shoot simultaneously, and the fact that you're stuck at a snail's pace whenever you need to shoot makes this some of the most unsatisfying gunplay in a competitive shooter, if you ask me. And in single player, when you find yourself walking around large levels with the only way to progress being constantly spraying on the floor for a bit, moving in squid form, running out of spray on the floor and so spraying the floor again and going into squid form again, you start thinking a lot more about how the ink gets inside the kids' bodies and then into the guns to be vomited back onto the floor and then sucked up again and deposited all over another player again, and then, like, what does it smell like? Where does it come from? Where does it go? I was going somewhere with this.
Oh, what's that, Nintendo? You're gonna throw me into an online match with players that have dozens and dozens and dozens of hours more experience than me? Well, bust my beef! So you've made it this far, well done you, but that also means... yeah. You've had the disease long enough for the rash to start. You might want to check your knees. Thanks for listening. Please share your garbage gaming opinions in the comments below, and if you do not mind, I have some cooking to get on with. So before you start the cookie wookie of the pasta, or as you say in the Americas, pasta, before you cook the pasta, you have to make sure it's thoroughly washed.
Excuse me, sir, can I get you a drink?
Ah, garçon, perfect. Yeah, I was just wondering, could I get all the alcohol?
All of it?
All of the alcohol, yes.
Okay, great. And for food?
Well, to be honest, I'm feeling a lot like pork tonight, so what do you recommend?
Well, we've got bacon salads, we have meatballs.
You know what, I think I'll have the hot dog, and be quick about it, I want it here 5 minutes ago!
Well, actually, kitchen told me we've got no pork.
What? Oh man, I was really feeling like a bit of pork.
Yeah, sorry, but they did give me this. What?
Oh please, God no!
What's the problem?
Give that thing here, this can't be real.
Peppa, when did you get a music career?
I hold here, in my hand, the debut album from aspiring rapper Peppa Peminem, and I can't believe it exists. Like, I actually can't, because not only does this mean she has infected the only media source which was initially safe from her trotters, but it also means that this is proof Peppa Pig fever is not dying down anytime soon. It's hotter than ever. This is brand new, by the way. I just want that to sink in.
If you've never heard of my channel before, you're probably wondering why I despise a seemingly harmless kids show so much, and don't worry, I do have my reasons.
Bursting bubbles is quite hard work.
I did an entire video about it actually, so click up there to go and see it. But to put it simply, I think that even after so many years it's been on and after hundreds upon hundreds of stories, the show never evolved to teach kids any valuable morals and demonstrated the most irredeemable, disrespectful and bratish behaviour from its main stars, you know, who the target audience are potentially going to relate to and copy, without discipline ever coming into question. At least I can only say that based on what I have seen from the show.
I mean, God, even Pingu got reprimanded.
This therefore leads to the characters in the show never growing, improving or learning, which means the kids watching never grow, improve or learn. But taking all of the morality stuff aside, I hate how ugly the art style is. George Pig is one of the most violently annoying cartoon characters of all time, and every episode serves as empty noise ready to be filled by a narrator that just repeats everything the character's already said, or says exactly what everyone is already seeing.
Eat your ice lolly before it melts and falls on the ground.
George's dinosaur ice lolly has melted and fallen on the ground.
You'd think by now that after 420 episodes over the span of 15 years, a couple of movies, a handful of games, and a theme park, that maybe, just maybe, the creators of this godforsaken show would have run out of ideas and would start putting their energy into other projects. But no, they're gonna milk this boar for all she's worth, and we're now at the stage of a Peppa Pig album. Have you ever walked down Hollywood Boulevard and had a load of people shove their mixtapes in your face? Well, imagine for a second that this thing is chasing you with her mixtape. That's what this is.
And like a knife slicing my vital organs, I welcome it. So everybody sit back, relax, and allow me to get my wireless Bluetooth Cove Solitude headphones on as we take a look at Peppa Pig's album. Oh, no, sorry, my mistake. Peppa Pig, my first album. She's so conceited. Why is Peppa so up herself? Like, she expects that this is gonna do well already and there's gonna be a second album inevitably. And hell, what if it doesn't stop there? First we get Peppa Pig, my first cinema experience, then Peppa Pig, my first concert, and now this. What could be next? Peppa Pig, my first handgun? I've already got one of them!
Okay then, I'm ready for you to hit me with your best shot, my first album. And to start with, I'm at least glad I could listen to it entirely through my Apple Music subscription, meaning I didn't have to pay for it. But I'm not too sure about the album cover. I don't know if it's the upside down Apple AirPods here, or if it's simply missing something. I don't know. How about if we... Ah, there we go! The hashtag Pepper effect rages on with... Help me! Okay, so we begin at track 1. It's Peppa Pig.
No shit. Who else is it gonna be?
By the way, unfortunately due to copyright restrictions, I'll have to do a lot of describing on what the songs sound like and only pause to use extremely short clips as and when they're appropriate. Yes, I know that sucks, but trust me, I'm doing you a favour. Anyway, It's Peppa Pig is basically a more produced and extended version of the theme song, and it's not the worst thing I could have imagined actually. You've got a kids choir taking you through most of the song, which entices the little ones to learn the easy rhymes and sing along, but then all of a sudden it gets interrupted by Peppa herself.
I live in a yellow house on a hill.
And maybe it's because I'm a bit out of touch with the show, but that does not sound like Peppa to me. Unless Peppa is supposed to be 30, the voice is way too deep, I'm starting to feel uncomfortable, and then all of a sudden...
I'm a bit of an expert.
What? What the hell was that for, Daddy Pig? You're a bit of an expert at what?
There's then a part in the last 40 seconds of the song that I like to call the Muddy Puddle Breakdown, because it's just Peppa talking about how much she loves jumping in muddy puddles with horrible suction noises in the background. And I'm fine with this, I suppose, but it makes me very worried about what the hell track 10 could be about if we've already talked about jumping in muddy puddles. Anyway, the song ends with someone taking a big dump.
I am Peppa Pig.
And on to track 2, Bing Bong Zoo. This song is basically just a load of annoying nonsense. That didn't take long, did it? Think of it like an audiobook of Peppa and her friends describing a few animals at the zoo, asking you to copy her actions even though you can't see her, and then putting those parts in between a song that can only be done justice by doing a dramatic reading of it.
Bong bing boo. Bing bong bing. Bing bong. Bingly bungly boo.
Bing bong bing. Bong bing boo. We're all going to the zoo. Ting ting. This is the zoo stop. Oh, there's also some questionable sound effects in here too.
Did you hear that?
I'm starting to feel a bit sick. Peppa, have you had a bath? I think you've given me foot and mouth disease. The most annoying thing about this song to me though is that out of every animal they could have possibly picked to fit in the chorus with the correct syllable count, for example, what they do with their first chorus,
I'm a penguin at the zoo.
they instead go for this,
I'm a crocodile at the zoo.
then this,
I'm a butterfly at the zoo.
and then this.
We're all animals at the zoo.
The words don't fit with the rhythm, preschoolers can't move their tongues that quickly when they sing, and I feel like my entire body is shriveling. The next track is Let's Get Ready, which is very easy to explain. It's row, row, row your boat, but about getting ready for the day. You know, getting washed, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, and all being sung without rhyming. Brush, brush, brush your teeth until they're sparkling white. Brush up and down and round until they're sparkling white. Wait, that's the line? That's what we're going with. It's the same word! I mean, look, it isn't difficult. Just change the first line to brush, brush, brush your teeth. Make sure you do it right, and the problem is solved.
We can't go out yet, George.
Yeah, because we look like this.
Next track is Expert Daddy Pig, and I dread to think where it's going because it starts with an almost minor diminished sound suggesting he's an evil overlord waiting to eat his kids.
Oh, I know what I'm doing.
But it's actually all about how Daddy Pig thinks he's an expert at everything from reading maps to making pizzas, but actually can't do any of those things very well at all.
Silly Daddy.
Leading to the end of the first verse where Daddy Pig tries to hang a photo frame on the wall, and the whole house caves in, crushing Daddy Pig to death. The next track is Rainbow Rainbow.
It's got all our favourite colours in it.
Really? But rainbows don't have black. Peppa's a massive racist.
And this song is basically a more difficult version of the standard Rainbow song that every kid knows in order to learn the colours of it, so that's fun.
Red and orange and yellow and green and purple.
And maybe it's just me, but when kids' songs and nursery rhymes specifically don't rhyme and instead try to get away with using the same word or not rhyme at all, that really steams my ham because kids love rhymes. They're satisfying and close off phrases of music in a nice tight bow which is easy on the ears. It's good for creativity and your language development too. So when I hear lines like red is the colour of our car, it's the best, I then expect orange is the colour of mummy's favourite chest, which is disgusting. However, it's actually red is the colour of our car, it's the best, orange is the colour of mummy's favourite dress, which just doesn't sound right, it doesn't land as well. I mean, you could put anything at the end of the first line to make it rhyme.
But then again, what else would you put there? Red is the colour of our car. Oh, yes.
Do you know what colour that is, George? That's right.
What? Oink.
The next track is Super Potato's theme, and if anything, I'm just lost by this point. It's a song about eating your fruit and vegetables and being healthy, which is all well and good, but first of all, we still haven't established if Mr. Potato is actually a sentient potato, meaning we should be eating him, and secondly, the song's lyrics are really not clear on this message at all. I mean, it lists the fruit and vegetables that kids would know and why you should eat them, which is fine, but the chorus repeats the adage,
Remember to eat your 5.
with no further explanation past that. Preschoolers are stupid, you gotta be more specific. What? Eat 5 fruit and veg a day? A week? In my whole life? At least I can be positive here though and say this is the best song on the album so far. Yeah, I'm not joking, it's got good rhyming, a nice rhythm, a nice upbeat tempo, and the chorus is surprisingly catchy, so well done, Peppa. Sharon.
Did someone say my name?
Yes, very clearly. Can you not hear them? It's almost like potatoes don't have ears.
Okay, now at this point I'm getting the warning bells out. You see these stars here? On Apple Music, these represent the most popular and most played tracks on an album. And the fact that the first half of this album has these stars and not the rest of it says to me that the parents who put this on for their kids realised they made a mistake and couldn't stomach it any further than track 6. Anyway, track 7 now, Peppa and Friends. A desperate song that illustrates that in order for you to ever have fun in your life, you need at least one friend to play with. This is simply untrue and dangerous for kids to think. And my childhood self sitting on his own playing Taz Wanted on the PS2 because he was bullied all the time has something to say about that. I need more friends. Next track, The Class of Madame Gazelle, a marching song that lists off every child in the school of the show. Which is great if you want to learn the names of every child in the school of the show. But more egregiously, it tries to tell you that school is fun. Now come on, Peppa Peg. My childhood self sitting on his own playing Woody Woodpecker on the PS2 because he was bullied all the time has something to say about that. I really need to shut up. Track 9, Festival Fun. It's she'll be coming round the mountain when she comes, but talking about how brilliant it is that Peppa and George are going outdoors. No, I'm not kidding. Read the lyrics. Peppa and George are pigs from a battery farm. Oh god, here we go. It's now time for jumping in muddy puddles.
I wonder what this one's about.
Yeah, this one is just boring. It's the most stock-sounding track on the album so far, and that's saying a hell of a lot, because most if not all of the songs on this album sound like a load of kids singing along to presets on a Yamaha keyboard.
DJ! DJ! DJ!
Yeah.
Dictionary.
Okay, that's a bit harsh. I mean, it sounds modern, it sounds cleanly produced, it's not like MIDI quality, but that doesn't excuse the fact it uses all the same instruments and effects that you'd hear on every single stock kids nursery rhyme video on YouTube, or even what you can buy from stock sites online. This is a stock nursery rhyme track that I downloaded for free nearly 10 years ago. And here's Peppa's album. Copyright, sorry.
If it weren't for the voice actors from the show giving little snippets of dialogue in between all the tracks, I wouldn't be able to distinguish any of this as a Peppa Pig album. It doesn't fit with anything. I mean, look, think of the original Peppa Pig theme for a second. You know, think of all the xylophones and the brassy instruments going up and down and plodding all around. Sounds very piggy, right? Well, there's nothing like that anywhere on this album. It's just the most stock, bland, inoffensive bran flake music I've ever heard in my life. It doesn't feel like it fits on a Peppa Pig album. What's the point of this being a Peppa Pig album? When did my life get to this point?
Do I dare bring up another thing released decades prior that tries to accomplish the same goal but does it a million times better? Sure, why not? The classic nursery rhymes collection from 1983 that I did a video on years ago does indeed have an album version of the movie. And here you get nursery rhymes performed with a variety of different singers and musicians, played in totally different genres that change in every track, and with the use of real instruments. In fact, let's just take a look at the composer's written preface to the album. It says here, and I quote, "The aim was to present the traditional nursery rhymes and songs in an entertaining and imaginative way, but true to their historic roots and without the cheap commercialization often present in children's music." I salute you, John Duprez. I know this isn't Peppa singing traditional nursery rhymes, but the sentiment remains true. This doesn't sound authentic or warming. It sounds cheap and patronizing. With this, you can hear the performances and hear the love that went into it purely for the goal of entertaining kids with no silly synthetic bells and whistles attached. That's what makes this more timeless and like you can actually listen to it as an adult even though it is kids songs.
Peppa's first album doesn't make me feel like a kid again. It reminds me that Bambi's mum never made it.
By the way, in the Jumping in Muddy Puddles track, you're also stuck with more vile and sloshy mud sounds, which if you wear a good pair of headphones sounds like Peppa Pig, my first ASMR.
Muddy puddles.
Sorry, perhaps I shouldn't be so mean to Peppa. I mean, didn't you know? According to Google, she's 7'1". That's as tall as Shaq. She could destroy you. Wait a sec. Does that mean she'll eventually get a PS4 game spin-off called Peppa Foo? Christ, if she's that tall, how big does that make Daddy Pig?
I know exactly how heavy I am.
Please don't.
The next track is called Holidays, and it's a reskin of One Man and His Dog Went to Mow a Meadow, my least favourite kind of kids song, like Old MacDonald Had a Bloody Farm or Fat Sausages Sizzling in a Pan. God, I wish that was Peppa! The kinds of songs that go on forever and repeat themselves to fill out a boring melody by counting up or down from one thing and then including or removing the other things but saying the song over and over again with one more or one less thing each time. Did I bore you explaining that? Good, because it's worse when you listen to it. And even though this track only lasts for 1 minute and 40 seconds, it feels like half an hour. You just repeat the same song over and over again, counting down from 5 days till holidays to 1 day till holidays. I'm falling asleep. The next song is literally called Traffic and is a kid's song about how fun it is to be stuck in traffic. Seriously, why would anyone in their right mind make a song about traffic for kids? It's never fun. It's not fun for the adults driving or the kids in the passenger seats, and no amount of car noises being used as backing instruments can convince me otherwise. This is not just depressing. This is a kid's song called Traffic. Track 13, Balloon Ride, a song where Peppa repeats the same words over and over again. Big balloon, bigger than the sun and moon, flying high in the sky. Fly and fly and fly and fly. Look down there, growing on the ground. What's that? Trees. You know what though? This is gonna sound strange, but this melody and chilled out vibe to the track actually reminds me a lot of the lullaby tracks in Katamari Damacy.
We're flying in a big...
You know what I mean? I mean, just make the singer Japanese and I think it would fit really well in the game. I don't mind this track, aside from the awful lyrics. Next track, Busy Miss Rabbit. A song about a rabbit in the show who is criminally overworked and has like 1 million jobs while trying to look after 1 million kids, which she clearly can't do with her paychecks, otherwise she'd just have one job. But instead of deep socio-economic commentary on Peppa's first album, we just get told how funny it is that one second she sells ice cream and the next she's a fire engine driver. Look, I don't know about you, but if I found out Mr. Whippy was coming to save my life if my house was on fire, I'd be very angry. Next track, Peppa Party Time, a song about Peppa having a party for absolutely no reason. And guess what she does? She sings, she dances, and she jumps in muddy puddles again. I mean, what more can I say? It's boring, it's samey, and even better, because the kids all say the word party so many times in the song, it eventually sounds like potty.
Party, 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 party.
And I don't know about you, but the very idea of a song existing on this album called Peppa's Potty Time makes me violently ill in my mouth. So let's skip this one and move on to the final track, Peppa's Lullaby. Aww. Yes, I know, you were all enjoying it so much, but all good things must come to an end.
It's just a shame I can't say anything about this track other than it sounds exactly how you'd expect it to sound, you know, stock lullaby music with a waltzing rhythm. But I did find this lyric very interesting. Good night, Peppa. Good night, George. I wish you'd get stuck in a gorge.
There we go. The things I do for this channel. I need a drink. And what have we learned today, everyone? Well, it's that this album here has proven once and for all that Peppa Pig is still going strong as a franchise after 15 years. I don't see why myself personally, but I can at least take comfort in the fact that whenever you search for her on Google, one of the first image results is that traumatizing screenshot of her from a fake online video screaming at the dentist. In life, you've got to take the little victories. At the end of the day, though, all of my stupid joking aside, this is for kids. Really small kids. So who cares? We all grow up eventually, forget a lot about the media we used to love, and then we take a look back and realise that Andy Pandy's full name was Andrew Pandrew. My point is, we can all laugh and joke about it, but unlike the show, this is ultimately harmless. It's just fluff. But it still has Peppa's face on it, so it has to go.
Peppa skin.
Oh, baloney. It is hard work being a horrible goose. But after a hard day's work, there's nothing quite like unwinding with my Nintendo Switch TM.
And as luck would have it, there's now a game about being a horrible goose that I can play at home to save my energy.
That's a good thing too. I was getting tired of poking old men in their junk with my mouth.
Untitled Goose Game may be the best game I've ever played. And it hasn't even got a name. Okay, that's an exaggeration. I think I prefer Cars 2. But objectively, it's certainly the Citizen Kane of video games. It doesn't matter how I feel about it, there's factually nothing wrong with it.
Something doesn't add up though. What month is it?
When the cryptos creak and the tombstones quake, spooks come out for swinging way.
Yeah, so how does any of this fit in with the month of terror?
Well, if you're asking that question, you clearly haven't had a run-in with a goose before, and consider yourself lucky. They're horrifying. They've got beady black voids for eyes, they can fly, they have teeth, and they hiss when they're angry, which is basically all the time, since all you need to do is look at them and the gloves are off. Feeding bread to some ducks, they'll challenge you for the whole loaf. Walking alongside them, they'll take that as a threat. Flying in a plane, they'll throw themselves into the engines and take it down. These geese aren't Canadian. They're not nice. But all of that changes when you boot up Untitled Goose Game, because this time, you get to ruin everyone else's day. Untitled Goose Game is the most advanced and intensive game on the Switch so far, testing the limits and capabilities of the console unlike any other game before it. And that's interesting because it's nothing more than a thinking game. I wouldn't necessarily call it a straight puzzler because it relies on a lot of stealth, positioning and timing as much as figuring out how to cross off things from your to-do list, but it's definitely not a platformer or action game either. I mean, unless you want to do this in an action game. This isn't Goat Simulator, where screwy physics and doing the most insane nonsense is the name of the game. No, you are just a goose waddling around an English village trying to upset everyone, which already makes it the most realistic game ever made.
Jamie!
You just need to be a mug, that's all, and annoy everyone in the most creative and imaginative ways possible in order to get them so mad that they accidentally open a passage to the next area so you can get into a model village and steal a bell, in order to add it to your collection of the same bell the village keeps on replacing. You need to get a bell to the end. So you're a belle. It's also impossible to play the game without laughing like a maniacal British supervillain. When I first started, I ran over to a bench, picked up a sandwich, and dunked it in a lake. And right there, I realised, this is only the beginning. How you solve all of these puzzles is mostly up to you, depending on what you can pick up, drag along, hide behind, flap at, or honk at. Which is what makes solving these puzzles so fun. They aren't just creative and often challenging without any hand-holding solutions, but the geese controls are simple and the visuals childishly endearing. It reminds me a lot of Katamari games, actually. Leading to total E for everyone carnage as you try and get inside these citizens' heads and think logically about how you can make them do the things you need them to do with the limited moves available. You have to directly influence their behaviour based on their individual expressive personalities to your gain, and I find that ingenious. All without voice acting or guideposts, by the way. You'll be making a gardener hammer his thumb, breaking a woman's broom, scaring an old man into spilling tea on himself, locking a young boy inside a phone box, washing a woman's undies in a water feature, taking a stool away from an old man so he falls over, stealing a young boy's toy and sticking it in a shop so he has to buy his own toy back. You're completely terrible, but adorable. And the calming ambient piano pieces that suddenly get more disjointed and manic the more things you steal give the alert themes in Metal Gear Solid a run for their money.
Hey, look at me! I'm Liquid Goose!
Wait a second. If I'm in a model village of the same village I've been playing in, and there's a model village version of the model village in that village, does that mean there's a model village within the model village of the model village? I've also seen a lot of people complain about the controls in this game and how the goose tends to get stuck on everything, especially while you're running, and I think I'm just going to help those people that think that. Not only should you not be holding the run button down all the time because this is primarily a stealth puzzle game and you'll attract everybody's attention all around you, but you can move 360 degrees around you perfectly if you're not sprinting, so you have to alternate between the two. Sprinting is great for wide open spaces and last minute dashes if you've stolen something, but if you're in a tightly packed area with lots of hiding places, yeah, don't hold the sprint button down. You just have to take it a bit slower and you'll see that you'll maneuver around the tight spaces a lot easier. Overall, Untitled Goose Game may be short and too simplistic in visuals or gameplay for some, but you don't really play it for that. You play it for all the other elements it has combining together to create one of the most innocent and charming games I think I've ever played. If you like the concept and like what you see in this video, chances are you're gonna fall in love with the game automatically, just as much as I did. I mean, look, even the pause menu is a load of English road signs. You won me over with that alone, game developers. Although I do wish it was that easy to quit from a motorway, and I don't remember ever seeing an options petrol station. Although I do really want to go to Resume Park. I hear it's lovely this time of year.
It was my destiny to be here, in the box.
Even if you get a little frustrated trying to work out some of the more cryptic aspects of the game, it doesn't matter, because if you like what you see, then you are going to enjoy it no matter what. While working out all of the puzzles and witnessing the total misery I was causing to this quaint little town for a stupid, selfish reason, I had a smile on my face from start to end. And sometimes a game just needs to do that, even if a few puzzles require a bit too much waiting for the characters to cycle through their actions.
Honk honk bitch, I'm coming for your ankles! To be honest though, my arms are really tired from all the flapping I was doing at the Vicar yesterday, so how about we play another game, but on a lighter console? Is that a banana in my pocket? Or am I hungry for banana? This here is the Nintendo Switch Lite and the main reason this video exists, so thank you so much to Nintendo for sending me one for a review. Looks like you skipped Halloween and jumped straight into Christmas.
Yes, I also wanted an excuse to talk about Goose Game and show you that geese have teeth on their tongues. You're welcome. But as the title of this video suggests, after getting this in the post, I decided to literally push this thing to breaking point. I played it, I sat on it, I baked it, I ate it, I put it in my... And I did the same for my old Switch too. Also, I could compare the two and advise you all on if you should get a Switch Lite next to your old Switch, or if you should get one of these in the first place if the original Switch didn't sell you.
And you know what? Out of everyone I know that has the Switch Lite so far, nobody got it in yellow. Why not? It's question block yellow. It's Mario Sunshine yellow. Where's the love for yellow? I even did a scientific survey on my Twitter to find out what the most popular colours were from the people who bought the thing already, and barely anybody got yellow. You're all cowards. Why didn't you get yellow? I can't see a single reason why you wouldn't want to get yellow.
Who lives in a pineapple?
Part 1. What does it do? The Nintendo Switch Lite is more or less exactly what it says it is, a lighter and smaller edition of the regular Switch, and because of that it does more or less exactly the same things the regular Switch does. Same user interface, same online store, same download speeds, at least from what I tested, same cartridge slot, same memory card slot, same touchscreen, same gyro motion controls, same button layout, same charging cable input, and same headphone jack. But the caveat is that the Switch Lite comes to you at a heavy discount compared to the regular Switch. In the UK, for example, it's £80 to £100 cheaper, or like $90 to $120 cheaper in the US, which means that you must sacrifice something else other than the size in order to save the money. So you lose the Switch aspect of the Switch. Yes, the gimmick of the original console, relevant to its namesake, was that you could play a game portably on it, then slide it whenever you wanted to into a dock connected to a TV and switch the game onto an external display. But the Switch Lite doesn't have that. Nintendo dear! This is a portable exclusive edition of the main console. It's a Nintendo...
So automatically, if you don't have a Switch, but really want a Switch and didn't get the original one because it was a bit too pricey and you were just going to play it in portable mode anyway, then this thing is the bargain of the century. I mean, I think that sacrificing TV compatibility for the sake of saving 100 big ones is a no-brainer.
Whether or not you think this is worth it if you already own a regular Switch, though, is another story. So as we go on with this anally cis, I hope you can draw your own conclusions on that. It is important to mention, though, that if you do plan on getting the Lite as a companion piece to your original Switch, Nintendo does support automatic cloud saving nowadays if you sign into your Nintendo account on both devices, but it isn't seamless like with Steam. And one thing that is a little annoying is having the foresight to remember to manually download your save data from the cloud on the next system you play the same game on every time you plan to continue that game on another system. It's nice that it's there, but automatic updating on save downloads would have been really appreciated, especially if it already auto-uploads once you save a game anyway. Another thing to note is that unlike the regular Switch, each half of the Joy-Cons don't disconnect from the system. They're permanently cemented onto the sides of the console, and it doesn't feel right. I just want to snap it. As a plus, this means you'll never lose the Joy-Cons or have to worry about their individual battery life. But the cost is that if something goes wrong with the controls, including the infamous Joy-Con drift,
The Fast and the Furious,
then fixing or replacing that end of the malfunction just got a whole lot harder for you. Thankfully, you can still connect every variation of controller to the thing, including the Pro Controller, third-party controllers, and even two halves of other Joy-Cons, so I guess that's always an option. But where this is a really nice feature and does allow you to play local multiplayer and play games that require individual Joy-Con motion controls like Super Mario Party, which would be otherwise impossible on the Switch Lite on its own, for some unholy reason, Nintendo decided to remove the stand from the regular Switch, completely negating the fact that it's local multiplayer compatible and yet doesn't project an image onto a bigger screen. So playing on flat tables with friends on the Lite just got a little more irritating, all because you can't...
God damn it!
Part 2. How it feels when you tell it it's adopted. Using the Switch Lite as a portable system, in my opinion, totally shits all over its dad and then tells its mum to leave him because he's covered in shit. Yes, that's his wife, he's into older women. It actually fits in most of my pockets, no sweat, which was a good start, but then I was more shocked to find out how comfortable the Lite was to handle in this portable state. Not just because of the weight, I mean, it is 100 grams lighter, so dropping it on your face while in bed is actually kind of comfortable.
I love it.
But because the buttons on this thing are absolutely lovely.
Wait a second, what is that on my scale?
Yes, I do massively miss the HD Rumble Joy-Con controls on the original Switch, meaning that there's no vibration at all on the Switch Lite on its own. But I'm willing to give that a miss in exchange for DualShock 4 styled soft press buttons that have that satisfying clunk with every press, on the D-pad and the face buttons. You know, it doesn't feel like the spongy and stiff GBA D-pad buttons, and certainly does not feel like the rigid and snappy standard Joy-Con buttons, which I don't really have a problem with on the face buttons, but on the D-pad? No. Awful. Puke. Every time you press these buttons, a kitten gets stomped on. The only buttons that feel identical to before are the analog sticks, if you class them as buttons, the home button, the plus and minus buttons, the snapshot button, and the L and R buttons. Yes, even the ZL and ZR triggers feel completely different. They aren't springy and light like on other controllers, but instead of having the snappy and stiff buttons, you get this lovely cushioned click that feels way more like a trigger than the original Joy-Cons do.
By the way, I am aware that the standard Switch button layout is because if you want to split the Joy-Cons in half and give one to another player, you want to have very similar button feelings and similar button styles on each half, so I do understand why there's those snippy, snappy, horrible buttons on the standard Switch, but if you're going to be playing exclusively in portable mode, this thing feels 10 times better.
Oh, and also, we already know the Lite is indeed lighter, but what about thickness? Any change there? Well, surprisingly, no. They're practically identical. But who cares? I mean, this is the Nintendo Switch Lite, not the Nintendo Switch malnourished. Not to mention, it feels more stable with it being its own system too. Not that the original Switch didn't feel stable out of the dock, but there is a tiny bit of wobble that doesn't exist on the Lite. And in my blue Joy-Cons case, you can't nearly drop the entire thing while playing it due to a faulty locking system.
Compared to the original Switch as well, the Lite gets nowhere near as hot after long play sessions, which is great because the most comfortable way to hold the device is to have all of your fingers on the back of it supporting it. And that is where the most heat is generated, so can't complain there. And speaking of the system getting hot...
Part 3.
How vroom does it go, Daddy? I want one.
Okay, it's pretty obvious at this point that I have been using the Zelda Link's Awakening remake as my example game for everything technical I've been testing so far, just to be fair on both consoles.
And you know what? What the hell? I already talked about Untitled Goose Game for God's sake, so while I'm at it, why don't I just give you my quick thoughts on this remake?
Link's Awakening on Switch is a total joy and now one of my favourite Zelda games. It may be a little bit more linear and one by one with dungeon progression than other Zeldas in this style, and I think I prefer Link Between Worlds honestly, but I don't care because the world is enthralling and filled to the brim with secrets, the characters are memorable and wacky, it has a surprising amount of emotion for such a simple story, you can build and share your own dungeons even if you can only locally share them with amiibos, the art style is unique and adorable, the dungeon upgrades you grab are either just plain fun to use or allow Link to traverse the world in ways unheard of in other Zelda games, and even things as simple as using your shield as an actual item to add a little bit more timing and thought behind combat makes the experience that much more engaging than just standing there and letting attacks bounce off of your shield when you're not attacking. You need to protect yourself by holding the button at the right moment, and you can't really keep it held down forever because your movement speed is cut dramatically while you do so. By the way, I never played the original Game Boy game, but I do know how often you needed to pause and switch out items to fit them on the only 2 action buttons that system had, even with the sword and the shield. So I'm immensely glad that they not only used more buttons for items, but also made dungeon items that should have been permanent upgrades to Link in the original actually be permanent upgrades, like lifting heavy boulders or dashing really fast. I cannot imagine how tiring the original must have been for switching every usable item every 5 seconds. Oh, and you gotta love being able to put different types of pin all over the map so you can remember which single rock needs to be pushed aside 5 hours later so you can fall down a bloody hole. So yeah, you should get this game. It's fantastic, if a little expensive considering you can get 6 totally remade retro games for only a tiny bit more money. I don't see why this was worth the same as Breath of the Wild in the slightest. Nintendo, fix that now, please. Also, watch out for the performance of it. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, for everyone talking about how perfect of a remake this is, even though the game runs at 60 FPS most of the time, whenever you load into a new area, you get ridiculous slowdown. And some areas like the rapids never seem to run smoothly at all no matter how long you stay in the area. But luckily this ties in beautifully with my test on the performance of both systems. I already mentioned that the Switch Lite in portable mode gives off a lot less heat than the original Switch, and surprisingly, the fans on the top of the console are barely noticeable on the Lite when I could hear them a few times on the original. I guess this must mean they've smoothed out the same processors or something to make them run more efficiently, because it's certainly not a massive power upgrade. Both systems, as far as I could see, ran Link's Awakening with more or less identical performance, with the frame drops occurring in equal amounts but just at different points. But here's the big difference: the load times, whether booting up save data, waiting for the game to start, or moving from one area to the next, were seconds faster on the Lite than the regular Switch, so consider me massively impressed. And hey, the Lite may also run some games a little bit smoother, but for the sake of equality, it didn't run Link's Awakening any faster, but it did load faster by a long way. Thank you to Nintendo once again for letting me have a review copy of Link's Awakening for my Switch Lite when I already bought the thing on my regular Switch, just so I could film them both being played at the same time. Part 4. How good does it look? Because I'm really shallow. I'm not talking about comparing the screen of the Lite to the TV version of the regular Switch, because that's just not fair. I'm talking about the screens of each system itself at full brightness and how they both look. And to be honest, if there are any major differences to colour, anti-aliasing, sharpness, clarity, I honestly couldn't tell. They're both practically identical, save for the screen size. The only major difference I noticed was that on the Switch Lite, the darker areas of the screen looked a little bit more deep and rich in the colours and a little bit more contrasted, but to be honest, that's more noticeable looking at it through this camera lens and with this lighting setup I have. In real life, you can barely notice anything, and the differences are so minuscule I don't think this was worth its own part of the video, so if you don't mind, I think I'm gonna get my pistol from the attic, point it at my head and pull the effing trigger. Part 5.
How good do I sound? Sorry, I mean how good does it...
Unlike the displays of each system, the speakers on both of them do provide major differences while in portable mode. For comparison's sake, I recorded both systems with the same mic from the same distance of each system with them both on max volume, and just take a listen yourself. It is noticeable. The regular Switch is not only a little bit louder, but I think crisper and clearer with its audio frequencies. I don't know if they tried to beef up the bass a little too much on the Lite or if it's just the quality of the speakers, but it does sound just a tiny more tinny and muffled with certain lower end frequencies. It's clear, don't get me wrong, and voice samples and sound effects sound fantastic, but it is different. To be fair, I usually wear headphones while in portable mode anyway, so this doesn't bother me personally, but with the sound quality, the point goes to the original. Part 6. Death! How long does each system stay alive? Well, it took me far too long to figure out these timings, but before I go into them, please note that in order to see how the percentages were changing between each device, I had to turn the systems on and off briefly for each of them, which may have affected things a little bit, so consider these estimates.
Oh, and once again, I did test all of these things while playing Link's Awakening in the background, because unless you were in the middle of a game and needed to carry it on later, why would you need to stick the thing in sleep mode in the first place?
Anyway, this is the data I collected with all of these factors at play. While playing Link's Awakening on both systems, I managed to get 3 to 4 hours of gameplay on the regular Switch from full charge, which was nearly doubled by the Lite at a whopping 5 to 6 hours, which makes me very happy for sessions of games that eat up the battery life like CTR or Breath of the Wild. While in sleep mode, I then decided to count down how long it took each system to drop by 1% of battery from full charge. The regular Switch took about 5 hours to drop 1%, and the Lite took about 6 hours, so you can obviously see why waiting for them to entirely die on me from 100% wasn't going to happen. And as far as I'm aware, the sleep mode drains more battery the lower the battery level is, but I'm really not sure about that, so consider this a wide berth. But hey, at least we know that they can still both sleep for years without needing a charge. Finally, I then tested out how quickly the battery charged from 1% to full using the same AC adapter that came with the Switch Lite. The regular Switch took about 4 hours and 5 minutes to charge to full, while the Lite took 2 hours and 50 minutes. God damn, it's thirsty. Part 7. Nothing. Go away.
And that's all I've got to say, everyone, so I hope this video was informative enough for you if you were thinking about jumping on the Switch bandwagon for the first time, if you were thinking about getting an upcoming Christmas gift, or if you wanted to get a companion piece next to your original Switch. But if you wanted to do that, you'd have to be a little Nintendo rich. At this point, I only have one question. Where is my goose in Smash?
The original Yooka-Laylee was a game I massively enjoyed and that I feel people were way too harsh towards when it came out. In fact, I did a much more serious and less jokey review on it years ago that you can find right here, and ever since the somewhat depressing reception, I just assumed we'd never see the series again.
And then I cried so hard that Playtonic themselves sent me a personal letter which said, "Fine, we'll do Yooka-Laylee 2, please stop sending us your salty eye water." And here we are, Yooka-Laylee and the impossible Lair. Thank you so much to Playtonic for the review code on PC. Now I know what you're thinking, how on earth could this game be possibly associated with the month of terror?
Well, you know what's everywhere this time of year? Bats. And Laylee is a bat, so it's a horror game, okay? Also, every single thing in this game has eyes. If that's not scary, I don't know what is.
We cool? We good? Great, let's play some Yooka-Laylee!
The game begins straight away, and you find Yooka and Laylee, our heroes from the last game, having a look around the Royal Stingdom, one of the many worlds in the series represented by a boom! And then the biggest baddie from the last game, Capital B, appears from atop a blimp ready to cause more trouble, I'm sure. All of a sudden, the queen of this world, known as Phoebe, comes down and explains that Capital B has the means to enslave every bee in this world to be used as his soldiers, using a mind control device called the Hive Mind. And I do love how Capital B has all the time in the world to just let us chat about this whole thing while he stands there doing nothing. Eventually, though, he decides that sitting around and letting the heroes discuss battle tactics isn't a good idea at all and thrusts us into the intro level, acting as a tutorial to the game. As you can see, unlike the original Yooka-Laylee, we're no longer free roaming around a fully 3D open environment collecting stuff. We're now in a 2D side-scroller, but with more restrictive movement, that doesn't mean we aren't on top form. I mean, unlike the original game, Yooka can even swing on ropes now. Oh.
Is it a little bit possible that you all noticed a few bee puns up to this point? Because I don't know if you did, there's not that many of them.
B-Talion, B-Enforcements, kick his behind, devious plan B, invincibility.
Oh, what? No invincibility? Well, that sucks. I think it would have been much honeyer to use that one, and because you didn't use that, I think there's some sting wrong with your business! So I carry on for a bit, get to the end, kick capital B around in a pretty easy boss battle, head through a door, and straight away I'm dead.
Whoa, it's a survival horror! I told you this game is scary!
Well, actually, that was supposed to happen, because it turns out we were just given access to the final level of the game, the Impossible Lair. Yes, the game started you at the end, and so because Yooka and Laylee are dumb and didn't think that they may have struggled inside a place literally called the Impossible Lair, Queen Phoebe had to save them at the last minute. She then explains that in order for us to chase after capital B again in this lair, we'll need a lot of assistance from her B-Talion, a collection of tiny bee warriors acting as extra hit points to shield Yooka and Laylee from any and all damage. But unfortunately, after the tutorial, capital B captured all of these bees and locked them in different chapters inside the Royal Stingdom book that he's hiding in. So after the Queen manages to get the chapters out of the book, which didn't go completely to plan, we then begin our quest to search around a giant hub world, find the missing chapters, rescue every bee inside them by beating the level, and then go back into the lair with all of them by our side, acting as extra hit points to stop capital B from taking over the bees. This game is basically a giant metaphor for saving the bees, and that's a cause I can get down with.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I love bees. I think they're adorable. I mean, just ask me back in 2015 with my old Vine account.
There are bees everywhere. Bees. It's bees.
I'm really sorry you had to see that. Saving the bees aside, is Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair a good game? Well, if you're asking me, I think it's pure brilliance. It's way better than the first one, and this is coming from someone who really enjoyed the first one. And how do you know you can take my word for it? Because on this bit of the game, I was supposed to grab a secret by bombing a wall and then running around the back of the cave to get it, but instead I did it the wrong way and jumped over the gap. I'm hardcore, I know what I'm talking about.
So where the original Yooka-Laylee was basically Banjo-Kazooie again, I mean, it's essentially the same team that made it, Yooka-Laylee 2 instead goes for a sort of mix between Donkey Long Country... Thanks, word. Donkey Long. And Yoshi's Island, most notably with how you can grab items with your tongue and spit them out back at others, the fact that you do quite a lot of jumping ground pounds for the environment, and the hit point system, because much like Baby Mario in Yoshi's Island, if you get hit, you lose Laylee for a sec and you need to grab her again in a short amount of time before losing her forever. Why on God's green earth doesn't she just come back to you? What do you benefit from behaving like this? Bah! Oh look, I lost you, now I'm in danger! Why do you do this? Who are you helping? Difference is though, you can carry on even if you lose your partner, unlike Yoshi, who doesn't want to carry on without his lunch, and that ability to carry on with or without your partner isn't the only place it starts to feel a lot like Donkey Kong Country. Funny again, considering that is another originally Rare developed title like Banjo-Kazooie was. So that means if there isn't a Yooka-Laylee first-person shooter in the works, I'm gonna shit. Not only is it a 2D scroller, but there's a lot of those automatic and manual fire barrels in the air that whiz you around, plenty of swimming sections, a few sliding sections where you jump from vine to vine while flipping between different heights, the rope swinging, background climbing sections, and of course, the main attack you'll be doing from start to end, the rolling, which goes as far as allowing you to do that neat mid-air jump after rolling off edges to feel even more like Donkey Kong. There are hundreds of secrets hidden behind walls and scenery in the foreground, you bounce on enemies' heads to reach higher places and grab collectibles. This truly feels like an indie dev's response to Donkey Kong. Unlike Donkey Kong though, you don't get multiple partners to find and use with different abilities, you just have Laylee. She's your permanent fixture, and I wouldn't describe her as a power-up, you begin every stage with her. But that doesn't mean she's useless or only exists as an extra hit point for you. If that were the case, there wouldn't be any of those bells to call her back if she vanishes off screen after you get hit. With her, you not only get the extra hit, but also get the ability to ground slam and do a mid-air twirl for a tiny bit of extra distance in the air, so playing carefully is majorly rewarded. I mean, it's totally possible to finish a stage as Yooka alone, but it's better to have the duo together, so try keeping it that way. Especially since the enemy behaviors are all over the place. Some jump in the air whenever you jump or attack, some charge at you and can't be harmed from the front, some fly, some give give you Koopa Shell-styled projectiles, some just get in your way by bouncing you back or messing with platforms, some can only be fired at with an item or door slammed, and others want to make you crap out a kidney. These crabs, man, I tell you, they're worse than crabs.
But if it does get a little frustrating or starts to feel too much like another Donkey Kong game, the main thing that makes it shine past anything negative as far as I'm concerned are the controls.
You want to know how I know they're so good? Swimming in this game is actually fun. That's how I know. For me, when it comes to Donkey Kong Country games, the defining factor that makes me never enjoy them as much as older Mario games is the control. I do love a bit of DKC, don't get me wrong, but the weight and physics of those games I really don't like that much. Impossible Lair, though, I've got to say, I prefer massively over DKC's controls. You carry a lot less momentum and weight than in DKC, making it far easier to move freely and position yourself exactly where you need to be at a moment's notice, without the worry of slipping off of things, awkwardly positioning myself too slowly at the last minute, or dropping down too fast. I know this is why so many millions love DKC games, and I still do too, but for how many precise and tight platforming sequences those games can have, the controls are far from my preference. It's hard to describe just how good Yooka feels to play. You don't float, but you're not too heavy. Your jump arc is exactly how you'd expect. Turning around and slowing yourself down after gaining speed, running or rolling is responsive and fast. Hell, even with the rolling, I can control my momentum more in Yooka and don't get carried away, because the only way to keep a roll going perpetually in Yooka is to keep smashing into enemies and objects. Otherwise, it's more like a short dash, and again, unlike Donkey Kong, Yooka can perpetually roll on his own without Laylee. So yeah, you may be one hit away from death, but at least you're not completely defenseless whenever Laylee leaves the screen, unlike Donkey Kong, who loses quite a lot of abilities when he hasn't got a partner with him. Again, making Laylee feel more like an extension to Yooka's abilities instead of an essential power-up. She has a lot of benefits and it's good to keep her, but losing her is nowhere near as much of a pain as losing a partner is in Donkey Kong. You can even tail whip when standing still, so attacking while needing to be still isn't a hassle.
Oh no, looks like the internet physically came to my front door and are bashing it down because I said I prefer this over DKC, so I better carry on quick. Undoubtedly, the coolest thing in the Impossible Lair is the Impossible Lair itself, which you can access from the very beginning of the game, and where you can use all the bees you rescued as extra hit points to make things a little bit easier.
The Lair acts as the ultimate challenge of the game, and it goes on for what feels like a good half an hour, with the hardest platforming in the entire game and even 4 separate boss encounters with capital B after every section of it, which also get harder the closer to the end you get.
In case you're wondering, yes, I did try doing it after only rescuing 1 bee. And I beat it. Finish the game. See you next week!
Well, I sort of beat it. Okay, yeah, so I was pretty useless at it, but I still think it's cool that you have the choice to tackle it whenever you want to. If you feel like you can tackle it, or you feel like you've played enough of the game, you can just go for it. In fact, one of the game's unlocks requires you doing it all without saving a single bee on a brand new save file, so the Impossible Lair is most certainly possible, just not very easy in the slightest. It's an endurance test to the max and allows you to truly demonstrate everything you've learned throughout the whole game, and even after I decided to rescue every single bee, because, I mean, I was going to see everything the game had to offer me anyway, I got 48 additional hits. 48, yet still had to retry the entire stage 7 times, and I still took 46 hits worth of damage. God damn, if you've done this without rescuing a single bee or even taking a hit, I demand pictures. Just to give you an idea how extreme this really is, you could spend 25 minutes reaching the final boss, maybe longer than that, and then beat it only to then fail at the final sprint section while everything explodes around you. And if you die, you need to start from the beginning of the lair all over again, bosses included. It's a little sadistic and a major difficulty mountain, but I won't lie when I say the adrenaline I got dashing through the final sections with barely any hits remaining made me physically shake, and it felt euphoric to finally finish it. It's also just really cool to see the things you collected throughout the game actually contributing as a gameplay mechanic to the final hurdle, and the attempt count and percentage bar give you a great idea on not only how well you're doing for the just one more time mentality and the competitive aspect, but it also gives you the chance to work out a ratio of percentage through the level to how many bees you'd potentially need to rescue for another attempt, just in case you don't want to go for every single bee and you can get relatively far without that many bees to begin with.
What's that? You still don't think Yooka-Laylee is a horror game? Well, how about you take a look at the first thing you see after you fail an attempt at the Impossible Lair?
Getting to the other levels in the game doesn't just require finishing the last ones though, you also need to get past Trouser the Snake, hands down the best character in all of Yooka-Laylee just for his voice alone.
Yeah. But why is he called Trouser? Don't get the pun? Well, don't worry, I'll show you what they mean!
In the original game, he was the guy that you could buy new moves from with the quills you collected, but in this game, you have to give him some of the limited twit coins you find in each stage to get past these barriers that he calls paywalls. There are 5 twit coins hidden in each stage to find, so you can go back to the hub world and buy your way past him. He's basically Moneybags from Spyro, but not named after a prick. Unlike Moneybags though, in my opinion, Trowser is far more lovably hateable since he has the absolute gall to flaunt the cash he's taking from you and buys pointless things for himself while you're standing right next to him. You don't ever get the coins back, but hey, at least when he buys a barbecue, he ends up burning his entire house down. Serves you right.
Could you at least pass me a sausage?
Don't need to, Trowser. You already are one. I suppose I'd better find some more coins in the other levels to make up for him wasting them all. And hey, look at that. I managed to find them all in this stage.
Ooh, what's that music? An instrument. What's that instrument? What is this? Banjo-Kazooie?
Gotta make one thing abundantly clear though. The impossible lair looks fantastic. Not just the 1080p 60fps gameplay from the Steam version review copy that you've been watching me play.
Yeah, I haven't even touched the Switch version. I just wanted to show support to Playtonic. Game's great.
I'm just talking about the style of the game in general. Character designs, environments, light effects, detail. It's so great. If you weren't a massive fan of the 5 worlds, 6 if you include the hub world, in the original Yooka-Laylee, and weren't too keen on how long you'd be exploring the same themed visuals in each location and getting the missions done, I'm happy to report that the impossible lair will blow you out of the water. I wrote down blow you out of the water. I meant to say blow you out of the water! There is so much variety in the stages and they're all so beautifully crafted. There's so many stage themes, colours, enemy types. Each level in all the books you jump into feels like its own contained mini-universe. The foreground is busy and lively without being a headache and keeping it obvious on what's interactable, and the backgrounds have so many little details and animations poured into them, it's actually a shame you'll mostly be blasting by them or focusing directly on what's in front of you. I mean, I do find it a little confusing how rolling gets you underneath objects and yet Laylee somehow clips through the object anyway, but at the same time, this is also a game with a bee called Willycomb. I'll say that again, a bee called Willycomb. So whatever, this is fine. And you know me, with any kind of video game visuals, I'm obsessed with the effort dedicated to the little things. The level flagpole sinking when you walk over them and then rising up again with sparks, and the fire looking like 2D animated paper. I also love how the checkpoint marker is a 3D scanner that captures the exact frame of animation Yooka and Laylee were in when they fly by. It's a world where planks of wood have eyes, purple feather quills throw up smaller versions of themselves, bushes give birth to bombs, fans say hooray when they're blowing and get upset when they're not, enemies live in houses with framed pictures of characters they hate, and the bees live in houses decorated with more bees.
Oh, that reminds me, I need to wallpaper the living room!
Even the individual bees you rescue for the Beetallion all have names and brief descriptions like the monkeys in Ape Escape, and countdown timers sound like this.
Not that this has anything to do with anything, but I really love how Yooka looks when he's holding something in his mouth.
He looks like my dog holding a rubber ring the wrong way.
Hey there, Stan. You're right there, buddy.
Gotta say though, this music, my god, this music. And that was just for the tutorial stage. It gets better from there. They knocked it out of the ballpark once again, so all of you on the screen right now, well done everybody, great job. I loved the more atmospheric tracks from the original game to accompany the long sequences of exploration in one location and not annoy the hell out of you, but Impossible Lair's music takes it into overdrive. Not only because it knows exactly when to be atmospheric, but it also knows when to be energetic, mysterious, bouncy, daunting, groovy, chilled and aggressive, exactly when it needs to be. And all the tracks individually are a great listen with their varied instrumentation and weaving melodies. They all stand out. I found myself humming to many of them even if they were more ethereal and droning, and they even get away on the occasion remixing memorable themes from the previous game. The level design is, well, have you played Donkey Kong Country? Did you think they had creative levels with plenty of stuff to platform around, extremely tough but fair sections with tricky enemy placements, many environmental hazards that can be used to your benefit, lots of horizontal and vertical platforming challenges centered around running, jumping, swimming and climbing, a few times you get to directly affect the environment around you to progress, and plenty of cartoony satisfying action? If yes, then you'll love Yooka-Laylee too. It's more or less Donkey Kong in design as much as some of the mechanics. You mostly get left to right affairs where you simply make your way to the end to rescue a bee, and on the rare occasion, by which I mean twice, there's levels that make you search down 5 individual branching paths from a center point in order to grab keys and bring them back to the middle to rescue the bee. In each level there isn't even a massive checklist of items to collect, only the 5 Twit coins and the bee at the very end, which not only makes the game flow a lot better without so much stopping and searching for a million collectibles, but also lets you focus on all the challenges in front of you. Difficult moments in this game are mostly down to the platforming and not as much where the Twit coins are hiding and how you reach them. I mean, the game does have them, but they're pretty occasional compared to the amount of Donkey Kong's absurd stipulations for getting all the puzzle pieces and Kong letters. You can still get mileage out of every stage by exploring though, and curiosity is rewarded, but it's mostly with a buttload of quills, which are optional to grab depending on how much you want to alter the game with purchasable upgrades. So you aren't missing too much if you just want to have fun and not search every single wall, which is still more fun for me to do than in Donkey Kong Country anyway because of the buttery controls. And despite the 2D plane, many stages still offer you a lot to work with. There are puzzles and secret areas requiring you to grab a particular projectile and then going back through the level to use it, making sure you don't kill the correct enemies in order to bounce on them on the return trip to reach the higher areas, and parts where you grab the projectile and have to use it further on in the stage while making sure not to get hit and potentially lose the item before you're able to use it. Luckily though, you can still save the item if you're quick enough.
Oh baby, did you see that? Woof, come on now, how did I even do that? I don't even know.
Those are some tight hitboxes. Yooka-Laylee is better than Dark Souls 2.
The Twit coins themselves are sometimes hidden in dastardly places that make you go, ooh, cheeky. And other times they're on screen waiting for you to grab by taking a small diversion to find a secret entrance to an area, or by taking a risk against a group of enemies defending the coin. And I like this, since you need to buy your way past paywalls regardless, it's nice that those players who don't want to go out of their way to complete everything are accounted for by giving them very easy to spot and grab coins that are delved out just often enough to get you by comfortably, but with a little bit of extra searching just in case you're a few coins out of reach for a paywall. There are even some secret exits to a few levels to rescue more bees in the hub world. Did I mention this was like Donkey Kong? Because it is. This is Donkey Kong. I mentioned earlier that quills are used to buy equipable upgrades, and you can get them from the returning character Vendy the vending machine. No, sorry, Vendy the big chunk of cheese. And where these are useful, this means you can grab as many as you want. The pace is up to you.
What's that? You still don't think Yooka-Laylee's a horror game? Well, take another look at Vendy.
If you do decide to grab as many quills as you can though, the amount the game showers you in for completing tiny side objectives like with finding the coloured ghost quills doesn't only feel rewarding since the quills do have a very valuable use for upgrading yourself, but are also just immensely fun to do in the middle of a stage, especially since every ghost quill has a different method of spitting out quills around the stage under different time limits, and all work themselves around the already fun levels. In particular, they like to activate near enemies and difficult platforming bits, so it's nice to just get that extra reward for doing a difficult thing you were already going to do. And by the time you find them, activate them and beat them, you've taken a sidestep in the level that lasted less than 10 seconds. Also, some of the ghost quills have Twit coins as rewards, so it's worth trying to find and complete them all anyway. And if there's no coin, there's a dump truck of quills to reward you. Even the hub world, the means to pick which level you want to play, is in itself a giant level, but top down. It has enemies to fight, it has dozens of secrets to uncover, shortcuts looping you back to earlier parts of the world, and you can do most of the same moves in the main stages, but just with a more restrictive jump for the sake of not being able to break the puzzles. This is how you do it, Mario 3D World. This feels like a mini Zelda game. There's a shocking amount to do here. It's actually here where you can find all the upgrade tonics that you can then later buy from Vendy in the pause menu, and there's over 60 of them. Yeah, it's huge and it's great. You can even find hidden extra bees that you can usually only get from regular levels. There's side quests to do too, with these challenge rooms hosted by the main collectible from Yooka-Laylee 1. Pages.
Here come my friends!
After talking to them, you get thrown into a challenge room where every enemy needs to be bopped with you only having 2 hits before needing to restart. And if successful, the pages just float around and magic themselves everywhere with this dumbass expression on their face. I love them. But this also means they alter the hub world even further so you can reach even more levels and secret areas for tonics and bees.
I knew that pieces of paper being able to do this makes no sense at all, and that they've essentially gone from a collectible in the first game to a godlike deity in this one. But to be honest, if I had this character model, I'd use it in every game I ever made.
So what about those tonics? Well, there's over 60 of them, and damn do they change things up. They can be as useful as Laylee staying around longer when you take a hit, longer invincibility frames, making the 12 jump damage enemies, no slipping on ice, and this amazing gliding spin jump that saved my life many a time, or completely useless like Big Head Yooka or the plethora. The utter bacterial infestation of filters and aspect ratios. I won't lie, some of them were really cute and could even be mixed together since you can equip 3 tonics on your person at any given time. But most of the time they were totally useless and almost funny when considering that someone will use them for speedruns and will hate every second of it. Or you can slow down the entire stage, if you're an insomniac and need to find a way to fall asleep. But even this tonic system has its own perks to consider. You see, if you're struggling with the game and save up your quills for an upgrade that actively helps you out, like extra checkpoints or something, that ends up subtracting from the potential quills you can earn in the stages, then making it harder to save up for future upgrades if you have a helpful one equipped. On the flip side, if you equip a tonic like giving enemies 1 more hit point, but also googly eyes, you get even more quills on top of what you collect instead of subtracting them. And I didn't think the extra hit point enemies was too hard since it gave me another chance to reach a higher platform secret by bouncing on them in case I messed it up the first time. The more tonics you equip to make the game harder, the more quills you get as a reward to purchase more of the tonics you find in the overworld. More risk, more reward. It's a great system, and if you don't massively care about buying any more upgrades if you already have what you want to make the game easier, you can just keep them equipped until the end of the game because you no longer care about saving more quills for other upgrades. The balance is perfect. Well, except for the broken controller tonic. Seriously, every control being reversed for the sake of plus 0.3 times more quills for a stage is not worth it. Put it this way, the extra hit point enemy tonic gives you plus 1.5 times more. But at least the quill magnet tonic doesn't affect your quill count at all, which is awesome because it's easily the best tonic in the game and allows you to skip tons of trickier precise platforming segments because you can just make the quills float towards you, even through walls. It even makes the ghost quill challenges 10 times easier and allows you to grab every single quill they drop to award you with insane payouts. Seeing as there's also treasure chests in the hub world that contain keys and side quest items that need to be paid for to open with quills, yeah, Quill Magnet was the best tonic for me by far. You can even spend tiny amounts of quills at the wooden plank signs with eyes so they can give you hints on where the tonics are hidden in the hub world. What they're gonna do with the feather quills, I have no idea. Maybe they'll put them on their heads or something. With all this being said though, do you think you'll make the impossible Lair easier for yourself by equipping tonics?
You can't.
What's that? You still don't think Yooka-Laylee's a horror game? Well, I found a cauldron pop that sounds like Johnny Vegas.
PG Tips T is completely natural.
This is the scariest game I've ever played.
You can even do this brilliant thing to the levels in the hub world in yet another side quest. By utilizing certain characters, setting a book on fire, freezing it, pushing things in front of it, turning on machines near it, basically anything you can think of, you unlock an alternate version of the same stage for every stage, and it's completely different to play in basically every way, just with the same enemies and themed obstacles. They're rearranged with new visuals and brand new scenarios with special handicaps, more challenges, more twit coins to collect. They're brand new levels, but accessed in a similar way to how Mario 64 allowed you to change aspects of the same level depending on how you entered the painting. When the game wants to get difficult though, it really does get difficult, with the chase segments especially. These moments are always blood pumping and often furnish... What's wrong with Word today? That's supposed to say frustrating. Why did you autocorrect that? And the alternate stages are often harder to make you boil over even more. It's never unfair, just really hard, and luckily you get unlimited lives, along with very quick load times after death, so it feels a lot like Super Meat Boy in some instances with how quickly you can retry tricky moments. Also good because every time you die, you lose all the items you grabbed up until your last checkpoint. Except for me. My game broke at one point and I didn't lose anything every time I died, so take that, twit banker.
That rhymes with something, doesn't it?
Oh no, don't worry, looks like the glitch fixed itself.
Oh! Looks like I'm gonna need a twit bank after all.
Towards the end of the game, it will test you to the limit, not just for finding and grabbing collectibles that sometimes require sacrificing Laylee to reach them, but with just finishing the levels themselves. You'll be thrown into some do or die situations with plenty of timed hazards, moving platforms and disappearing platforms, often all together, but with these controls, it feels so good to pull it all off. Well, when the enemies want to attack you anyway. He's a bit shy.
What's that? You still don't think Yooka-Laylee is a horror game? Well, I found a ghost quill that sounds like Wallace!
Jeez!
So how about I turn the game upside down with Game Boy Colors and Game Boy Resolution?
This is unplayable.
So there we go. Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. I definitely prefer this over any Donkey Kong Country game I've ever played. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, I'm just being honest. Yes, this does mean it has some of the DKC trappings like non-backtracking doors, which means if you've missed a secret or something, you can't just go back through the level, you have to restart the whole thing over again. That's kind of annoying, but it's nowhere near as bad as Donkey Kong, and to be honest, I'd recommend this over Tropical Freeze any day of the week. I know, I was given a PC review copy, but I just bought myself this on the Switch just to have anyway, to show support to the devs, and to give myself a version to play while I'm on the go. It's that good. So yeah, if Yooka-Laylee 1 didn't sell you, I'm pretty sure that this will. Give it a go. I mean...
What could possibly go wrong?
Okay, Platonic, I take that back. Go bankrupt. Oh, perfect. Now the internet has fully broken through my door. Looks like I'm about to die. Bye, everyone! Huh? What's this? Who killed Mozart? I don't know. I'm not a policeman. Hello? What's that? You heard I was bored and so sent me a game that I can play? And you thought you'd buy me an actual Halloween-themed game because all the other games I've covered so far this month have been really stretching it? And you left it for me by the front door? Well, thank you very much. Now I've got to move. I was just getting comfortable as well. Ah. What's this then? Dear Caddy, thank you for reviewing the PS Classic we sent you and dumping all over it. Here's another free gift for you, you ungrateful swine. Your parents should be ashamed. MediEvil PS4 review code.
Oh my god, yes! MediEvil PS4! MediEvil PS4!
Here it is, everyone, the game that the 2019 Month of Terror was building up to. Thank you so much to Sony for sending me a review copy. This one I was excited for.
What can be said about the original MediEvil other than it makes Google think you can't spell? I made a video about it years ago that you can see right up there, and to put it simply, I love this little 1998 gem. The quick and reactive hack and slash gameplay, the locations and atmosphere, the voice acting, the music, it's pure PlayStation bliss as far as I'm concerned. And after 21 years, it's great to see such a diamond in the rough get the high budget main console treatment it deserves. And no, I'm not talking about that.
The original game sold decently at the time, at least enough for them to make a sequel in the year 2000, but over the years, the series itself garnered more of a cult following more than a pop culture mob like Crash and Spyro for the PS1. And then in 2005, Sony decided to remake MediEvil for the PSP. And then in 2019, Sony decided to remake MediEvil for the PS4. And then, in 2033, Sony decided to remake MediEvil.
Okay, so before I get into the main game itself, did any of you check out the demo for this when it launched? I did, and can I just say that this demo took me right back to being a kid again? I vividly remember playing this game's demo on this magazine demo disc years and years ago, and to see that the PS4 remake demo gave you the exact same levels to explore and same structure as the original PS1 demo before cutting you off and telling you to get the full thing made my insides feel like warm soup. You know, the kind that's so good it gives you acid reflux? The PS4 demo gave me indigestion. Not only that, but the main game item you could earn exclusively from the demo was a neat little bonus in the form of Dan's old helmet, but would you look at that? Well played, developers. This isn't just a cosmetic thing, it's an additional difficulty that makes the enemies way tougher and hit you much harder. What a nice thanks for making me sit down and wait for 11 gigabytes of 2 levels to download. Now, whether or not this stuff is from the copy Sony sent to me or just part of the Digital Deluxe bundle, I'm not sure, but I also got a few bonus items along with the main game, including an adorable digital comic book with animated panels and music going into more of the history of Sir Dan's character, and even a digital concept art book that lets me move a cursor around the screen and point at things. Can you see that this zombie is without a head? Well, now you can. Oh lord, watch out everyone, it's the Mad Family. Don't we all love those people? Oh yeah, guys, our family is so wacky. We're so funny when you get to know us. We're all mad in this house. This isn't a car, it's Mum's taxi. Isn't Daddy Pig overweight? Just like your real life daddy. Put him in a shirt, he knows. See, we're all a mad family, aren't we?
They are the worst. Parents suck. Kids suck. And that's why I have this game.
So we get this brand new and glossy intro cutscene for the remake to kick us off, and would you believe it's more or less a shot-for-shot redo of the original game? My nostalgia levels are already bursting, and I only ate 10 minutes ago. The main villain of the story then appears, Zarok, who my phone corrected to as Aaron, and he honestly looks as good as he's ever looked. For what that means, anyway. He doesn't look like a mouldy, shriveled banana. The possessed village family look great too, and not like what my face is like when I've run out of chicken nuggies.
Sorry, you're probably wondering what's going on. I just assumed you've already played the original. Aren't I a silly old bag of bones? Here is the rundown.
In the kingdom of Gallowmere, there lived a sorcerer named Zarok. Sorry, Aaron, who was the king's jester and court magician over 100 years ago, but got banished after dabbling in necromancy, you know, as you do. As an act of retaliation, he built an army of the dead he raised himself and attacked the castle, but ultimately failed due to the courageous acts of Sir Daniel Fortescue, who led the charge into battle against Zarok and struck him down despite being mortally wounded. At least that's what history told us. You see, actually, Daniel was appointed as captain of King Peregrine's knights for no other reason than he was a terrific storyteller who lied about how many battles against dragons he won, and was just a little bit of a jerk who stepped on other people and worked his way up to being one of the king's favourite people. The captain of the knights position he held was purely honorary, because when it came to the battle against Zarok, he actually got shanked on the first charge. He didn't do anything, but because of his good standing with the king, he became the ultimate face of all the legendary heroes of Gallowmere, much to the despair of the people that actually knew him. So like it or lump it, when Zarok raises the dead many years later as step one for his revenge against Gallowmere, duty calls and Sir Daniel is the one resurrected into action from his crypt in order to save the kingdom because of his fraudulent history. And even though he was a bit of a sarcastic coward in life, in death, with everyone telling him they know the truth and that he'll never make it, he finally has a chance to prove himself as a worthy and loyal warrior. And Sir Daniel can't speak, so his actions are very important. Gallowmere is a gothic horror paradise. Graveyards have coffins literally leaping out of the dirt and soil. Crop fields have been overrun with possessed scarecrows and living rusted machinery. Insane asylums have been left alone for patients to go totally feral. Ancient towns flooded for hundreds of years are suddenly risen again. Villages of people are turning violent and aggressive, and undead soldiers from many eons ago are left restless and wandering, all thanks to Zarok's magic. So you've got to fix all the locals' problems, put the undead to rest, stop Zarok from finding a special key that kept his shadow demon army locked up for years, and finally take him down. And also, if you have the eye for it, which Dan doesn't, you can retrieve all the hero chalices from every level and finally earn yourself a legit place amongst the Hall of Heroes, and not because you were the king's spoiled little brat.
You spend most of your time organizing and changing all the guard and playing croquet with the king.
You know what, I've always wondered why there's a statue of Sir Dan in the middle of this cemetery, but as a skeleton, with no left eye and a missing jaw, surely that's disrespectful. Maybe we should go to Mount Rushmore and put a hole in Lincoln's head. Okay, so now we're at the main menu, and my god, look at it. It's the same as the PS1 game too. I can't handle much more of this.
Wait a second. Is that what I thought it was? It's the original voice clips. Oh, my poor aching heart. I cannot take the stop. I can't take the nostalgia.
The intro level in Dan's Crypt remains as one of the easiest intro levels in video game history. It lasts about a minute long and is a straight line with one branching path. So it's here where it's completely safe to pull your own arm out and use it as a boomerang and listen to Lady Olenna from Game of Thrones read you a bedtime story.
You must be out of shape after 100 years lying on your back.
And that's not the only addition in the audio department. Yes, they used basically all the same voice clips from the original game, but the music backing it all up, even though the same tunes, has been completely redone with a proper full-blown classical orchestra, and it sounds magnificent. In fact, I got a digital soundtrack with my review copy too, and it even showed me studio footage of the musicians recording the music. It's so cool to see the magic happen in real time, and sometimes pretty funny. I don't recommend you listen to all the individual instrument parts though, because then all you'll be doing is watching a lot of quiet nothing. And then all of a sudden, you also get to see a woman eating her packed lunch. This is the digital deluxe content I paid for. So MediEvil is an action-adventure platforming hack-and-slash hybrid that uses a lot of short stages instead of one giant open one. By using a variety of ranged and melee weapons to protect yourself while interacting with objects by pushing and using your weapons for secondary uses like lighting a club on fire to make a torch, you solve puzzles, survive waves of enemies all with different designs, attacks and defenses, fight a few bosses and eventually beat Zarok. There's a nifty auto-locking feature that you can cycle through enemies with by pressing L1. After beating one of the earlier bosses, you can dash and then do a dash jump for a longer gap. The levels have plenty of hidden areas accessed by using other weapons effectively. You use different coloured shields of different strengths to guard yourself from attacks and obstacles by holding another button. Dan, what the hell are you doing? You find health bottles to extend your total life bar and find life pools to refill them. And well, yeah, it's all great stuff. It's good to see it come back. Playing this game felt like I was cradling my own son.
I make some fucked up babies.
In fact, I was really surprised how well the level design has held up from the original. It's nowhere near as linear as it looks. Even if a stage lasts no longer than 10 minutes, you'll be searching all over the place for runes to open other gates and doors in the level and keys to access other areas from previous levels. Optional and required, even with a cheeky new boss hiding behind them if you're lucky. The same goes for the map screen level select. After certain parts of the game, it's totally up to you which direction you go. Then after reaching the ends of those branching paths, you then use other items discovered in other levels with all the delightfully colourful characters to get even more items for use towards the end of the game's story, or just more weapons, shields, extending health bottles, life vials, or money which can be used to then buy more ammo, weapon enchantments, shield repairs, or if you're really unlucky, extremely powerful and valuable weapons that get stolen from you by an imp, and the only way to get them back is by buying them from a gargoyle, and they're usually the most expensive items in the game. And because of that, I hate these little cretins more than anything. They're fast, they're tiny, they're hard to hit, they set you on fire, they steal your weapons and make me want to boil the first thing I see.
I also make too many babies. They've got to go somewhere.
You can even discover totally optional paths for optional rewards. For example, like this one part of the game where you grab a talisman from a cave hidden behind a breakable bookshelf, then use it on a cauldron in a much later stage, leading you to 2 optional search and rescue quests in a brand new optional level in the ant colony, which then lets you get rewarded with one of the many chalices you can get to unlock increasingly better tiers of weapons after you finish a stage, and a new optional chicken drumstick weapon that bombs enemies and turns them into edible roast chickens to get your health back. Now that kind of stuff makes it worth going out of your way to get everything, and not just for completionist's sake, or the additional gameplay segment you'd otherwise miss. You won't be doing exactly the same things in every stage either, such as with the final boss, where the first part of it gives you a one-off segment where you need to share your own health to stop your own skeleton army from falling apart so they can take down the opposing army's health bars, and inside the insane asylum where you have to survive increasingly difficult waves of enemies and zombies to then open locked doors and finish the level. I think MediEvil would like a word with you, Call of Duty? The asylum grounds force you to solve riddles from another character, while more of a hedge maze opens up with more puzzles you need to solve. And even the ant caves throw you into a total maze-like labyrinth you need to work your way out of.
By the way, the dragons are Scottish.
Who dares to enter my lair and wake me from my slumber?
Did you know fairies had stubbles? And are cockneys?
My people wish only to live our lives in blissful harmony with nature. Cure.
Check it out, even the Hall of Heroes makes its glorious return, the mechanic in which, by finding a very well hidden chalice in every stage that you can't pick up until killing enough enemies to fill a percentage bar, then allows you to get taken to the hall after every stage so you can talk to one of the many statues of your old friends or rivals that know the truth about your history, and in order to help you out, give you either a brand new weapon, more health vials, or more money. And something the remake does which I like a lot is let the souls of the enemies you take down float towards the hiding place of the chalice if you're struggling to find it. With this system, you get a ridiculous arsenal by the end of the game, and since the order of weapons you grab is only relative to how many chalices you have and not the level you get the chalice in, it's a fantastic completionist reward. The more you get, the gradually more powerful weapons you end up with. The final one of which being, well, oh, tatties. What's that? You don't think I'm worthy enough to get to the upstairs level? Well, I'll show you! Oh, crap! Just like I showed off in the intro, all the original voice samples are with the hero statues too, but just totally uncompressed for the PS4 disk space, and I'm majorly happy with that, because the deliveries of these guys just can't be improved. It's impossible.
Some say it is better to have a magic sword than a magic shield, but I say to use it, this is rubbish!
Dan does sound a bit different, but he's still voiced by the same guy as the original game, and to be honest, he didn't really sound like anything to begin with, so if you don't like it, then you're a bit of ever been. Even the evil sorcerer Zarok has his old voice clips returned, which is great since he has the greatest delivery of an English swear word I've ever heard in a game. Bugger. Rest in peace, Paul Darrow. You may have not had many lines in this game, but damn did you own the screen when you did. All the weapons have a standard and alternate swing or firing mode too, usually a quick and weak attack and a stronger attack that needs to be charged up. And basically all the weapons have different added effects for their charge attacks and not just the damage, so it's definitely worth searching high and low to find the chalices and experiment with the weapons. Well, except with the crossbow. The alternate firing mode is Sir Dan doing the same attack but holding the crossbow sideways. Now come on, that's funny.
No matter how much you hit me, you'll never cleave me! Never cleave me, child!
If you've never played the original game before, then everything I just said will sway your decision on whether or not you should purchase this remake. But if you have played the original before, then everything I just said has essentially wasted your time.
Wanna know why? Because this is, note for note, exactly the same game as the original, including where you get completely trapped by a spinning scarecrow, can't attack, can't guard, can't run, can't jump, and have no choice but to game over.
Oh, it's my favourite bit.
No joke though, aside from some new controls and a smoother play experience in general, everything else is identical. The structure, stages and level design, spinning your entire body around when you swing a sword, I still love that. You could easily beat this 2019 remake while looking at a medieval guidebook from 1998. Well, except when you're trying to find the locations of the new hidden souls added in this game that you can grab and take back to other levels and put them in a place they tell you to put them. Yeah, this was boring as hell, so I won't talk any more about it. So aside from the obvious looks, which I will get into, what else are there in differences? Well, first and foremost, the control is buttery smooth. Swinging swords and spamming square for quick attacks feels a lot more like you're gliding sword strokes across the screen and doing flowing combos, instead of just rapidly darting your arm left and right like in the original. And platforming is much easier in this version due to the tighter handling jump arc with more manageable mid-air control and less slippy weight when landing. Sir Dan feels more grounded, which is great because that makes jumping on these mushrooms a lot easier and lets you fully take in the delicious sloshing sounds they make. You've also got the choice to equip 2 weapons at once and switch between them with triangle, which believe it or not is revolutionary for the series. And this not only makes switching between your preferred range and melee weapon much less cumbersome and feels much better to use, which encourages you to use more weapons when it was a bit of a put off in the original with how clumsy it was, but it also makes some weapons like the enchanted broadsword much more fun to use. You see, the damage of this weapon is criminally ridiculous when it's charged to 100% enchantment at a merchant gargoyle, but whenever you have the weapon equipped, it drains its magic at like 1% a second. In the original, this was really annoying because you'd use the weapon and then to save the energy for it, pause and switch it out with another weapon, and then pause and switch it out when you wanted to use it again every single time you wanted to use it. But now all you have to do is equip it to your secondary weapon rack, use another weapon as your primary so you don't waste the magic of the sword, and then quickly switch it out only when you need to use it, and then switch it right back again so it can be in your weapon rack and not waste the energy. I mean, after fully completing your 14th level, you unlock the magic sword, which is permanently powerful, making the enchanted sword worthless after that point, but for the first 2/3 of the game it's a bloody godsend. There are other weapon balances too, like with the standard bash attack for the club and hammer. The hammer itself is an optional weapon to unlock, but the standard bash attack behaves exactly the same way as the club and breaks the same objects, except the club has a percentage bar that when at 0 will break the weapon forever until you get another one, and the hammer never breaks. Now in the original game, the choice between the two was a no-brainer. Get the hammer and never use the club to bash things, only use the club to light things on fire. But now, even though the hammer bash is the same as the club bash, to compensate for it being a weapon that doesn't break, the standard swing is much slower, which actually made me consider if in certain places I wanted to use the quickness of the club and sacrifice a bit of percentage for it, or open myself up to more attacks with the much slower bash of the hammer that doesn't break. It's a small change, but really appreciated. But then the hammer does have one of the best alternate charge attacks in the game, so yeah, I ended up mostly using that anyway. What else has changed? Well, you run all the time, that's something, and the speed of Daniel is pinpoint perfect and nowhere near as erratic as the original game. If you only had a D-pad for the original game, you'd need to double tap the arrows to run, so yeah, I'm glad we all have analog as standard now. Dan is just smoother to control all around. Camera control has improved a ton, as to be expected, with the right stick moving it around instead of the triggers, but then this is a bit of a double-edged sword. The control of the camera itself may be better, but in my opinion, the camera distance is just a little too close for my liking, especially in the more claustrophobic corridors and crypts. The only places it feels exactly the same as the original are when you're in the fixed camera locations. It's mostly fine and you do get used to it, but it's not ideal. There's also this new feature with the left trigger, a strafe command. Yeah, even though it looks like one, this here is not an aiming feature, which would make way more sense with an angle like this. And trust me, I tested it out on the first proper level of the game. I got on top of a hill hill and aim down towards some of the enemies with the throwing daggers, only to see the camera constantly snap back to my eye level. It never stayed up or down. They clearly wanted this to be used as a strafe, so if that's the case, why is the camera pulled in like in Resident Evil 4 when it's not built like that? Look at some of the times I used it. You can barely make out what's even going on, the camera is so close. I mean, it's really nice to aim left and right more accurately and get a better idea on where things are from a singular perspective at least, and with this feature, you get use out of ranged attacks against groups the original game wishes it had. If you use it well, you won't waste any ammo at all, and with the fire-breathing dragon armor in the late game, using it while strafing is practically game-breaking, it's so powerful. But if you can't aim freely up or down and don't have an aiming reticle because you still have the auto-lock fairy thing, why is the camera like this? It's cumbersome, especially when you want to use it as a quick camera snap to get behind Dan, which is handy as hell, but with the camera being so close, it can cause disorientation. Mario 64 DS managed this absolutely fine. It's a shame too, because with this feature, I used ranged weapons way more in this game than in the original. It is useful, but definitely could have been better. And this isn't me calling for the fact that you should be able to aim the camera up and down and freely aim around with like a third-person aiming mode or something like that, because honestly, with the way this game's built, that would break the game entirely. It would be way too easy. So what I mean is, just pull the camera back when you go into strafe mode. I don't know why it's so close. And also, do yourself a favor and remember that if you want to quick turn the camera, whenever you press the strafing trigger, the camera locks you behind wherever Dan himself is facing, not where the camera is facing. So make sure Dan is facing the way you want the camera to point before pressing it. Oh, also, there's this golden armor I found in my inventory, which may have been a digital deluxe exclusive again, but I'm really not sure. And even though it looks cool, meh, I'd rather have Jawless Johnny over here. By the way, what is with this apple in a hat that I found hidden in a haystack? What's that all about? Oh, he's in the end credits too? Why?
Apple. Apple Jacks. Jack Skellington. Skeleton. Sir Dan. No, I don't get it.
Bouncy, bouncy, bouncy brain, jump on it and bounce again. Squishy, squashy, so much fun. Bouncy brain.
Oi! Oi, you! Nobody stops my blobby brain birthday bonanza!
Sorry everybody. Caddy just went maddie. But he isn't a baddie. So aren't we all gladdy?
How about dem visuals then? Okay, so as a whole, the game looks magnificent, don't get me wrong. It can look downright gorgeous for a PS4 game, and it's very much like a dark folklore fairy tale come to life. But unlike the Insane trilogy that took the exact same cartoony style and just amplified it, I seem to think this lost a little something in translation from PS1 to PS4. This looks a lot less Tim Burton and more 2019 Addams Family. I mean, you could call it nostalgia, but I'm not too sure. The jaggedy and primitive PS1 models and textures really gave the original this unmistakable sense of angular gothic harshness, like a mansion. There were darker colours, a bleaker atmosphere. It's slightly more unsettling. More unsettling than being able to see through Dan's arms though? Nope, that will never be okay. Even with Dan's standard run, don't get me wrong, I love the goofier, lolloping bounce as he gallops around with his spine plopping in and out of his body. Except when he does this. Dan, please stop it. But he's lost that weird, rigid urgency from the original. He looks way more skeletal in that game and feels like he's been dormant for a century and can't figure out how his joints work. Take other examples like the ant caves. In the original game, I'd argue they were actually kind of creepy with the stiff enemy movements and utter pitch black tunnels. But now, it's mostly brightly lit, and the enemies are kind of cute. Well, except the Ant Queen. I mean, you can stuff that in your mum hole. Although I can't deny it does look great and has many pluses. One thing I do love is how Dan twists his whole head around and stares at you if you haven't moved in a while. When you buy things from the merchant gargoyles, they end up scoffing down your coins. That's brilliant. The enchanted earth actually looks like a magical forest this time, and not like your great-granddad's shed. The crystal caves look untouched and gleaming, and not like a dirty kitchen. The chalices you collect actually get individually added onto the long table in the Hall of Heroes. The pools of the ancient dead look even more foreboding and diseased. The lava looks suitably hot. Spears and arrows you fire at enemies get stuck in their bodies while you fight them. Lots of weapons have unique particle effects. Jack of the Green has these brilliantly stony stop-motion styled animations. There's flies gathering around rotting meat at the market of the sleeping village. The world map has subtle animations from the obstacles you'll encounter in the stages. And the extending life bottles you collect, once run out, won't just go empty, but will fall over on top of your health bar. I'm not going to sit here and say this game isn't pretty and has no detail, because it certainly does. And it can be utterly revolting, like with the pumpkin serpent. That thing looks nasty. But aesthetically, I really think MediEvil is better suited to bleak gothic horror than bouncy and cartoonish. cartoonish, even if it is a little bit morbid. And what about this frame rate, eh? Been waiting for me to mention it? So here's the thing, this game touts that it's PS4 Pro enhanced. I use a PS4 Pro, and most PS4 games with Pro enhancements allow you to pick between performance modes and visual modes to go full out with 4K resolution gaming at the cost of lower frame rates. God of War does this, and heck, even Neo did this back in 2017 and allowed for a mode with seamless 60 FPS gameplay that still looked fantastic. But MediEvil doesn't have this in any options menu I could find, so I don't know what exactly the enhancements are, but whatever they are, I'm sure they could have been sacrificed to get the game running smoother than this. Most of the time it runs at 60 FPS fine enough, and during indoor sections it's actually perfect, but when you notice those frame drops in bigger open areas, boy do you notice them, especially in areas like the Sleeping Village, which never seem to run smoothly no matter where you are. Neo is a much bigger game with similar structured levels instead of one giant open world, and yet it still looks better and runs smoother. So if regular PS4 owners are stuck with even worse frame rates than what the PS4 Pro can handle, I kind of feel sorry for you.
Well, hey, at least with whatever system you own, we can all play this.
Who's that hiding in the grave?
Hello! But hey, from the sound of my ranting from that part of the video just then, you may assume that I'm disappointed with the MediEvil remake. And I'm not. I still recommend you go and get it. It's good. I just think it could have done with a little bit more refining. I mean, it's still the same base great game that I've loved and cherished for years, but it controls as good as it ever has done, and it still looks and sounds fantastic. But I wanted to call this the definitive version of MediEvil, which I don't think it is. I think it's as good as the original. Which is more than I can say for MediEvil Resurrection, at least. Oh, mama.
I can see myself going back to this one over the original just because of how it feels to play and that it fulfills my nostalgia by using close to all of the original voice clips, and that it's exactly the same 6 to 7 hour adventure with the exact same levels. It knew what worked from before and kept it in while updating around it, and I appreciate that. But damn, I just desperately wish the performance was better and the camera not as unpredictable. If anything, when the PS5 finally launches and it makes PS4 games run even smoother, that's when I'll be replaying this one. I won't have a reason to go back to the PS1 version after that.
What? What? What?
All I care about right now is where the hell is the love for MediEvil 2? It was really good. The original game has been remade twice now! I mean, even the digital comic book that came with my game directly references the events that happened after MediEvil 2, and on the loading screen for the time device level, what's this? It could take you to modern London? Or Egypt? Is that a teaser, Sony? It better be a teaser. Hello? Sir Daniel Fortescue! What's that? You're coming over for dinner tonight? But you can't chew! Well, I'm gonna go and get ready right now, so you can come over whenever you want and drink all of my wine with your throat that doesn't exist, and I'll go and put on your favourite song. I can see Daniel waving goodbye.
I know what hides under your bed every night, children. It's Chainsaw Luigi.
Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Luigi's gonna saw your legs off.
Was that a Halloween intro?
Yes, it was. Daddy Caddy doesn't make mistakes on the internet. So why am I talking about a spooky game in November, which is so clearly not the month of terror? Well, because this game came out on Halloween, and I couldn't get a video like this done on the same day it came out. I mean, who do you think I am? Mark's Pliers? So just before the Halloween chills finally leave us and open the doors ready for Christmas, I think we can fit one more review in here, as I dive into Luigi's Mansion 3. Oh, perfect. This is exactly what happens when you make a YouTube video about a spooky game in the wrong month. Everything breaks. Karis, do you mind fixing that up quickly? Thanks!
Hey guys, welcome to my house. Wanna play some Slenderman? Or Layers of Far? No thanks, I wanna play Ouija.
Yeah, Plumbers Make Mansion 6!
I couldn't tell you how happy I was that a third game in one of Nintendo's most bold and unique franchises was coming out. I was so happy that I told Nintendo personally over email, and then they invited me over to their UK headquarters to check out the game early a few months back.
By the way, you see this box here? This was also lovingly sent to me by Nintendo as well, along with a review copy of the game itself, so thank you so much for that. But in this box, we have, well, first of all, this incredible shirt that I'll be wearing in this video, so thank you. this amazing hat, I mean, you gotta love it, and these amazing pumpkin carving stencils, which are useless right now, but I shall be using them next year, and this hold-up Luigi's moustache, which I used as a wooden spoon.
It's me, a Gordon Ramsay!
Weirdly enough, though, in this box, they also sent me another Switch. I have 3 now. I have more Nintendo Switches than arms.
Oh, I forgot about that one!
What's going on in this game then? Peach, Mario, Luigi and 3 Toads have been invited to a giant holiday inn called The Last Resort. We're all having a fun time during the long trip on the bus, and then...
Oh my god! Ghost dog! Ghost dog! Da 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 da! Da da da! Da 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 da! Da da da! Da da da!
Here we go then, off on our jolly hollies to a building that looks a lot like the Tower of Terror. Oh wait, maybe that was the point. And I mean, well, it's nice and all, there's a lot to see, absolutely, but there's nothing really to do, so perhaps we should just go to the reception. Oh lordy, that is not a face I was ready for! Am I ready to check in? Well, no actually, not only because I need to clean up after what I just saw, but I'm a little too distracted by your employees dry humping the desk.
Now you may all be wondering, why on earth would we go on holiday to a resort that looks like this after 5 minutes?
And, well, that's because a lady called Helen Gravely invited us all down. Out of the goodness of her heart. With no ulterior motives whatsoever. Ah, God damn it, stop! So I guess it's time to go to bed, eh? I'm sure everything will be a-okay and nothing at all will go wrong.
Night night. Night night.
Okay, that was precious. Oh, would you look at that? Everything went wrong. Now the room is filled with spooky decorations and dressing table jump scares for some reason. I can't handle this. I think I'm gonna go and hide in the bathroom. Oh, what? No! Not the toilet too! But what if I need a wee? It'll grab it! So as it turns out, big shocker, King Boo actually invited us the entire time. And now he has all of our heroes in the same location. OD, he's got them all stuck in portraits. We better run away before he captures us too. Hang on, wait, is that Pennywise? Blah, 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 blah. Find the poltergeist vacuum. Fight your way through angry ghosts. Mario is missing 3. Don't ever brush your teeth again because ghosts like to shove the brushes up there.
It's all pretty by the numbers, but how is the game to actually play? Well, if you're asking me, it's basically the same as the other 2, but with way more bells and whistles attached to make it not only the most enjoyable, but most brain-scratching Luigi's Mansion to play so far in terms of puzzles.
For the most part, you run around haunted locations, look inside cracks in broken walls for clues on how to get into other rooms, use your flashlight to stun enemies and reveal hidden ghosts that all have many different puzzles to solve in order to get them to appear, or to stun them ready to be captured. Oh, and you steal a ridiculous amount of money creatively hidden in every possible place you could imagine. I'd call Luigi a dirty, rotten thief for doing this, but honestly, the entire hotel isn't only out to kill him, but he's also cleaning up every room as he goes around the hotel, so I think he deserves some compensation. Your vacuum by default can suck and blow.
Stop it!
Which then allows you to solve many of the puzzles in each and every room of the utterly gigantic hotel, and the vacuum even allows you to pick up and fire projectiles on the odd occasion. But you'll mostly just be sucking, because as we all know,
Luigi is the king of suck.
The flashlight that you charge up in order to stun ghosts is back, and that's not all it can do. It can activate light switches and disintegrate rats. It is a bit weird how you can freely move Luigi with the left analog stick, yet the flashlight and vacuum aiming on the right stick is tank controlled, but once you get the hang of it, it's totally fine. Just remember, please remember, that most of the main moves Luigi can do with the vacuum and flashlight can be activated with all the triggers, which is 10 times easier than using the face button since you can still aim with your thumb while using the triggers. Since the original game, Luigi has thankfully got over his habit of molesting every bit of furniture to find hidden items and ghosts, but now he has a new disgusting pastime. Farting so hard that china pots break apart. Weird implications aside though, this is a move I massively love. It works great in most situations as an AoE explosion attack to blow up all surrounding interactable objects for money, and even works as a great pushback attack during ghost hunts to disrupt their attacks, defend yourself, or even jump over hazards when timed just right.
And this isn't the only aggressive move Luigi has. Please don't piss off Luigi.
You also get this new slam move. After successfully grabbing a ghost in the vacuum for long enough, you get the chance to physically murder them more than they already have been. And this not only knocks down their health a lot more, but also breaks objects you aim the slam towards, knocks down the health of other ghosts that you slam that ghost into, disrupts their attacks, and stuns them without the flashlight ready for a vacuuming combo. And this makes the classic ghost vacuuming gameplay the series is best known for easily the best so far. It's not only the most strategic and multi-purpose, but so much more satisfying for a third game in, instead of you just running around and sucking up the ghosts in the exact same way after you stun them. Not to mention, like in the second game, the money this time still has a use. It's not just to improve your rank after you de-haunt the building. You can actually buy a multitude of different things to help you out. Okay, well, 3 different things. A couple of revival bones in case you game over, the location of 1 boo projected onto your map, and the location of 1 gem projected onto your map. This is, well, fine enough, I suppose, but you know what Luigi's Mansion 2 had? Upgrades for the Poltergust, and they are nowhere to be seen here. No health upgrades, stronger slam attacks, nothing. Just extra lives and locations for hidden extra content. Especially disappointing since this extra hidden content rewards you with nothing at all. I mean, come on, that really sucks. Yeah, you get a new coloured skin for one of your gadgets and a new flashlight, but that's it. No hidden ending or anything. I mean, sure, you can improve your ranking for the hotel at the end, like in the other games, but I mean, that was the least I was expecting, because that was a feature from 2 games ago. The lucky thing, at least, is that finding the hidden gems and finding the money to buy the things needed to find the hidden gems, mechanically, is very fun to do. Most, if not all, the objects in each room are interactable in some way, and finding a dump truck of money as a payoff for exploring feels good, to put it simply. As is solving an obscure puzzle accidentally and getting a shiny rare gem from it. Rewards may be lackluster, but completing for the sake of completing can be quite fun. It also feels good that within 45 minutes of playing, you'll be 1,000 air. There's so much money in this game. Just make sure you search through every single bit of rubbish, set of drawers, cupboard, ripped wallpaper, folded up clothes, and box of tools. Towels! By the way, whoever came up with the idea to go back to EGAD's lab at any time to buy stuff and then carry on with exploring at the exact same position you were in earlier deserves a raise. This was so helpful.
In fact, no, you should be the head of Nintendo. Yeah. Take over from Doug Waluigi.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot. EGAD is indeed back, the inventor of the poltergust that you're using to capture the ghosts, and after you rescue him within the first hour of the game, that's when things really kick off. You not only rescue him with a gadget that allows you to bring back to life dead paintings, and allows you to track ghosts that are escaping from you, and reveals objects that exist in mirrors but not in reality, and reveals invisible objects and doors that look like they should be there but aren't, but at that point you also get the quest to save the rest of your friends by searching every floor of the hotel and by defeating boss ghosts that have stolen the elevator buttons giving you access to said floors.
This means, amazingly enough, this game takes a direction much more similar to the original Luigi's Mansion, which I massively prefer over the second one. There's exploration and backtracking through older floors and rooms that you go into, all to find hidden money and extra ghosts.
Well, not entirely. I mean, it's still mostly a linear adventure and each floor basically acts as an individual stage that you may or may not have to return to, the only thing tempting you to go back being all the hidden stuff. But each floor does offer a much more interesting explorative vibe as you dart back and forth between rooms finding keys to unlock more doors, only with a few times it feeling like a straight one-way trek. Sometimes you'll be going back to where you were earlier, and sometimes you won't be. It's kind of a mix of Luigi's Mansion 1 and 2, and it gets the balance pretty good. I mean, at the very least, does it feel anything like the Super Mario Bros. Stage selection from the second game?
No!
On top of all of this, you get even more to play with, like the new suction cup system, which allows you to stick your own plunger onto objects and walls and pull against a suckable bit of rope.
This is sounding more and more like something Wario would film in his bedroom.
This mechanic is equally great fun to experiment with and is multi-purpose. It's great for a last-minute bit of self-defense, but also great for pulling away reflective armor ghosts wear when your flashlight doesn't stun them, and also makes its way into puzzles and exploration a lot as you clear suitcases out of your way and pull things towards you that wouldn't usually be able to be pulled. You can also do the slam move with smaller objects too, and it totally wrecks the room. You look me in my slippery old eye and tell me that this doesn't look exciting. Combine all of this with the classic Luigi's Mansion staple mechanics like using mirrors to find hidden objects and switches with the fixed camera angle, and you not only have the most capable Luigi so far, but also the most attractive.
Draw me like one of your French girls.
And speaking of attractive, here's Luigi. This monstrosity is Luigi's helpful clone for this game, and he's the scariest thing Nintendo have ever made, even taking over thwomps in Mario 64. He turns to stiff rubber whenever he remains still, he slots through walls like the T-1000, he sounds like this, And the way that the real Luigi goes into a coma-like trance whenever Gooigi takes over hints at something much more sinister going on. The good thing about Gooigi though is that he's yet another additional mechanic to Luigi's already ridiculous arsenal and provides for even more styles of puzzle and combat encounter whenever you choose to use him. Like I said before, he can fit through metal grates, slide inside pipes, fall through gaps in the floor, and can be used alongside Luigi if he's in the middle of using the blow or suck mode of his vacuum, meaning you can get an extra strong pull against your plungers, or give the other Luigi a chance to bugger off while the other holds a switch down. His total lack of health and melting away whenever he touches water also adds a lot of tension to those few moments where you need to rely on him to capture ghosts, especially in the parts where the real Luigi is trapped or being attacked by something and you have to solve a puzzle or defeat an enemy under a strict time limit to save him. He can even be used as a decoy for other ghosts if you're feeling like a proper bastard. All of the Gooigi stuff mixes together with everything else, that sounds really disgusting, to make not only the most difficult Luigi's Mansion game, but equally one of the most challenging standard Nintendo single-player modes in recent memory involving the universe of Mario. It's all totally fair, mind you, but with the amount of gadgets to play with, new moves, and Gooigi at your disposal, there's so many options for tackling any and all combat and puzzle situations that you'll often forget what you'll be able to do. And you're not completely overpowered because of the lack of a jump command and the fact that everything that you plan to do has a little bit of a wind-up time. It's creative, it's engaging, and mechanically at least, it's the best of the trilogy in my eyes. Saying that though, when you're low on health, does the low health noise need to be so loud that every other noise in the game cowers under its weight?
Did you know I'm low on health? I don't know if you noticed, it's very subtle!
Oh, by the way, yeah, totally forgot to talk about the boos. I mean, they're certainly here in this video game. There's just not much to say about them other than that. They contribute to the terrible completion rewards, so what more can I say about them? Oh, I know, you can do this to them. You know what the scariest thing in this game is, though? Luigi talks to Egad through a virtual boy. Oh, no.
Okay. Now, you need to come over here immediately. Come on, don't be shy. Come and sit on my lap, wee willy Ouija. Because I need to tell you the main thing I don't like about you.
So as far as Luigi himself goes, well, he's still the cowardly, lovable dork we all came to know in the original. And he's got the greatest strafing walk cycle ever put into a video game. But as far as the setup for the story goes, it's basically the first game all over again, even to the point of Luigi being invited to a haunted location only to have his friends get trapped. But somehow, it's even more abridged than your standard Mario plot, and it tells this story in a lot less mysterious and creepy way compared to the first Luigi's Mansion. I mean, the first Luigi's Mansion story isn't exactly Soma, but I mean, take the portraits for instance. Finding out that the missing Mario is stuck in one in the original game is actually used as a plot twist, and is quite an unsettling revelation. You just kind of stumble into it while you're searching through these gothic, horrible, dirty, dank sewers and you're stuck behind a cage and everything just looks very unnatural. But here, within 5 minutes, the gang are already trapped and they're jingled around in your face like car keys. Every major cutscene usually involves something going ooh and then Luigi going wah, and it tends to play more to its strengths in comedy more than atmosphere. And that's fine and everything, but I still play Luigi's Mansion for the sharp contrast in atmosphere to standard Mario. Not the silly slapstick and exuberant villains. I mean, even though I do love the villains in this game, they're all brilliantly characterized, it still feels more kid-friendly than the original and less concerned with being about a haunted location. The ghosts in this game are just what so happen to be the enemies more than being the entire center point to the spooky thrills that the first game and even the second game had. That's where those two games shined, in its atmosphere, in the visual design, in how everything worked together in this horrible gothic universe. I'm fully aware though that this is still a Mario game, so plot isn't what you should be going in for, but I will still prefer the atmosphere of the original, which in my opinion is what elevated it over its gameplay. And that sucks a bit because, like, Luigi's Mansion 3 does look fantastic in every sense of the word. I particularly enjoyed how Luigi gets scared totally rigid and changes his animations for a second whenever he gets jumped. And how about that bit where Egad is running behind you? That alone makes this a Game of the Year contender. Look at him. Look at him! The grass in the gardens reacts to your vacuum perfectly. If you grab a pumpkin with your vacuum, then your flashlight shines through the carving and creates a projection. Toad can't follow you whatsoever and he likes to off himself. It's all great stuff. The only issue I have with the visuals being the physics. I mean, seriously, what the f*** is going on here? And here, with the most low poly and ugly trees and hills I think I've ever seen. I mean, good God, they look completely dreadful.
Oh, that's why they sent me another Switch.
The music is brilliant stuff too, since it changes the instrumentation and genre for every type of boss ghost that takes over each floor, and the sheer variety of Art Deco 5-star hotel locations and maintenance areas makes every minute of this game a pleasant surprise. You never know what comes next. But this then comes at the cost of it not being as dark, foreboding, and properly spooky like the other two games, which made me love Luigi's Mansion in the first place. Again, the atmosphere went a long way with those games, and I think we've now totally lost it. But then I remembered the entirety of the Egyptian suites, and the way that you can blow away and suck up every grain of sand in specific places to create ramps or dig up treasure, and I'm blown away by all the level of detail in such a small part of the 12-hour adventure. Even slamming ghosts into the sand leaves accurate body-shaped prints behind. The sand physics here didn't need to be this detailed, but they are. And stuff like this makes me totally forget everything I just said about the atmosphere. What was I saying anyway? Who am I? What are you doing in my house? I'm gonna call the FBI.
The most important question of all, though, is this. Can you pet the ghost dog?
Puppy.
That is better than petting my own dog.
You aren't enough!
And I don't recommend Luigi's Mansion 3 on that alone. Okay, maybe I do, but everything considered, taking the lack of atmosphere and disappointing completion rewards out of the way, this game brings the series back to a strong point and is way better than the second game for how it lets you get lost and explore in an abandoned and eerie building all over again, even if it's mostly brightly lit. I must stress as well, mechanically, it's by far and away the best Luigi's Mansion. It has creases that could be ironed out, but it does a lot more with its premise as a sequel than the second game ever did, almost to the point of this feeling more like a true Luigi's Mansion 2. Plus, there were far too many moments that I just loved while playing this game. I loved the King Ghost boss, where the only way to stun him was to joust with him and wait for him to charge right into you like a real jousting match. I loved all the blowing into musical instruments you could do in the music halls. I loved activating the chainsaw in the botanical gardens and shredding up every single thing in the room. I loved that part in the museum where I was thinking about how the hell I was supposed to smash these glass cabinets because there wasn't anything around, and then I couldn't find anything after finishing the area. But then I gasped in delight as I realised I could pick up Toad and launch his gross fungus head into the glass and break it that way. I loved that bit where one of the boss ghosts doesn't turn out to be a boss at all. He just wants to make a good movie, so films you having a Godzilla battle with another ghost while you both stomp around and annihilate an entire model city. But then you're feeling like a bit of a Johnny, so you follow the director back into the editing room, suck him up even though he's innocent, and get an achievement for it. I was caught off guard so many times I was able to look past a lot of my personal preferences towards the original game. And there's so many more surprising and downright creative and brilliant moments like that, which I won't spoil here. Not just for how they look, but how they mechanically work and how the puzzles are solved within those moments. Once again, in terms of pure content, depth of gameplay, and charming levels of detail and character, Luigi's Mansion 3 is easily the best one. Judging it if you're going through the campaign and not bothering with all the side stuff and completion at least. That stuff still sucks. Or blows. Whatever setting you like best.
You can even play the campaign in co-op, and there's a few extra mini-games that you can play in multiplayer mode. But we're not going to talk about them because we're grown adults playing Nintendo games. Nobody wants to play with us. Anyway, I think that Death Stranding is next on the agenda, so can't wait to see how terrible or brilliant that game is. But if I'm going to be sitting on this sofa for about 120 hours, walking in a straight line, the house is going to need to be cleaned before I do that. Don't want to get any rats. Alright, let's do this.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, beans! It's November! It's nearly Christmas! Christmas is a happy flappy time of the year where everyone loves each other and everybody gets a kissy-wissy on the lippy-dippy. That was really greasy. But as it gets closer and closer to the holiday season, there's one question that ends up bubbling in the back of my brain. Why are you all so miserable? Cheer up! It's nearly Christmas, what's wrong with you? You get presents in Christmas! Here's 10 people in games that really need to stop bitching.
What happens when Princess Peach gets her very own video game? She runs around in a big dress without falling over somehow and smacks everyone upside the head with an umbrella. Great, that's what I always wanted to do. To be serious though, Super Princess Peach is one of the most underrated games of all time in the Super Mario series if you ask me. I think it's fantastic. But it isn't without its questionable aspects. First off, you play the game in a place called Vibe Island, which explains why Peach is totally happy never committing to Mario. And secondly, there's this thing in the game that I like to call
the emotional baggage mechanic.
At the drop of a hat, by touching any of the 4 emotions on the bottom screen of the DS, this, you can manipulate Peach's emotions to your whim. And taking away the fact that someone being able to do that to you is horrifying, when you tell Peach to get sad, she gets really sad. Like, she gets so sad, her tears come out like Niagara Falls. Oh, it's so sad being the princess of a kingdom that literally does nothing. Woe is you. For this many tears streaming out of her face though, why is she only number 10? Simple, because she uses her tears to get through the game. She runs faster, makes plants grow that she can climb up, creates ice on cold surfaces to slip under things, moves water wheels. This is useful sadness. If my own depression could power a steamboat, I'd stop taking my medication. Neo is a fun game. Neo is a fast game. Neo is a difficult game. And if you're not busy dashing around the open-ended spaces of each individual stage looking for shortcuts and upgrading yourself by defeating enemies, you'll most likely be going up against some of the trickiest boss battles in recent gaming history. One of the bosses though, I must be honest, does annoy me slightly, the Ogress, because before you even start fighting her, she's hunched over in the corner having a good whinge. Grow up, lady. Why are you crying? You can't be in pain already, I haven't even hit you yet. Is it your nails? All you gotta do is clip them, there's no need to cry about it. Oh, good God, what is up with your face? You know what, if I had that face, I'd be crying too, I'll let you off. You ever heard of Captain Bible? It's a PC game from 1994 where you play as a superhero so useless that he doesn't think to bring a paper Bible inside a world that erases all his data from a digital Bible. And yet he needs a Bible to defeat the bad guys. What's that? You haven't downloaded the correct bit of the Bible to combat these lies being shouted at you from these robots? Well, sorry, it looks like you can't disprove them in that case. That means you lose. Why do you need to download the Bible one passage at a time anyway? Aren't you a gift from God? Can't you just, I don't know, remember the Bible? You're a very bad Christian. This entire setup would be sad enough as it stands, but one character in particular sticks out for taking the trophy in sad. The sad trophy. The leader of Bible Corps is this guy, and he's so sensitive that as he's telling you what your mission is, he just can't handle it and slowly starts breaking down more and more as he describes what's going on. Maybe he just realized that he was the leader of a group called Bible Corps. I mean, if that was me, I'd cry. It's a running gag in the Metal Gear Solid games for Solid Snake's genius behind the scenes, Otacon, to love something and then have that thing die. The man is a curse. Not kidding, in every main game he's a part of, he kills a character just by loving them. A sniper, a doctor, his own sister, and whenever this happens in the story, the waterworks fire up. I mean, I'd totally understand this for the first game, you know, the dude doesn't get out that much, he pisses himself when men stand in front of him. So when he starts getting serious with another character, yeah, whatever, he fails to understand the point of everyone killing each other on the battlefield and losing the first person he loves, I get that. By the second game, you know what, I'll let him have this one as well. Losing his only sister who he hadn't seen in years before they could repair their broken relationship, fine, have a good old cry. But by the fourth game, dude, everything you touch dies! You should be used to it by now. Why are you so inconsolable? Whenever you bone someone, they die! You should be expecting it by now. Even worse, after you finally get over yourself and say, I'm done crying. I don't have any more tears to shed. You then cry even more about the same person not long afterwards. I mean, look at you. You've got a MacBook. What more could you want? Shadow the Hedgehog as a concept just confuses me. He's basically the dark half of Sonic the Hedgehog. He didn't need to be any more than that. So why, when he got a starring role in his own debut video game, was he nothing but brooding and moody 24/7? Yeah, I get it. His favourite person in the world was essentially murdered and he doesn't know if he's a robot or not. But was this enough to pull out semi-automatic weapons and start saying the D word? I mean, come on, man. From the very beginning of the game, he has amnesia. He doesn't even remember why he's here or what he's doing. What's he got to be sad about if he can't remember anything? You know what's strange? Life. And this game proves it, because it's called Life is Strange, and it shows you life being strange, like a young teenage girl that goes to a high school, but is also able to pause and rewind time to change the events of the future. That's pretty strange. But you know what I think is the strangest thing of all? How bloody sad these people are. Lighten up, guys, for God's sake! You especially, little Miss Glum, can stop and rewind time at will. Do you think anyone else can do that when life gets too tough? Cry me a twatting river. You think you've got it bad now? Wait until you have a 9-to-5 job with bills to pay. Thomas Was Alone is a game about shapes that had to work together and solve puzzles, but that's not all. These shapes have names. And feelings. Take Laura, for instance, according to the wiki. Wait a second. Laura is a depressive AI who suffers from low self-esteem due to her belief that everyone she meets abandons her. You're a rectangle! Psychonauts is a good game. I think. I haven't played it yet. But one thing I do know about it, with all the creepy Easter egg videos I've seen on YouTube, is that there's a moment where you can dive into the mind of another character called Mila and find a hidden room where some of her deepest and darkest memories are stored. In this room is a slideshow called Mila's Children, chronicling the story of her old job working in what I think is an orphanage and having a grand old time. Until she pops out for milk and cheese and comes back to see the entire building on fire. Oops! Further on, you can open up a box and jump right on in to see what haunts Mila's nightmares. And this is where you see the ghosts of the children she couldn't save, burning alive and forever asking her why she left them alone. All this considered, I must ask, why are you all so sad? You're already dead! And also, you were probably all too young to have had any kind of meaningful friendships or memories. If anything, I think Mila did you a favour. You missed out on school, bullies, exams, PE, and when you grow up into an adult with a drinking problem, she saved you. Shut up! Santa doesn't come to alcoholics! Maximilian Payne is a very troubled individual. In fact, he's so troubled that it took him 3 games to come to terms with his life. Turns out that before the events of the first game, Max lost his wife and his kid to a sadistic group of junkies. And I'm sure that's enough to break even the hardest of people. But I mean, for 3 games? 3 of them? Surely by the 3rd game he'd be called Minimum Pain. It can't get any worse as time goes on. Where I have to start questioning the sadness levels on this chap though are with the facts that, firstly, he nearly has it on with another woman in game 2, so he's clearly moved on in some capacity, and secondly, despite how sad this man is, he's still able to pinpoint accurately take down every single person that stands in his way. Rifles, handguns, rocket launchers, machine guns, it doesn't matter. He's still able to dive around like Tom Daly and headshot multiple people at once during the same jump. You tell me, can somebody who is truly that sad ever be able to pull this off? I don't think so. Max, when you shave your hair off, you look like me. That's funny. Cheer up. When I think of the ultimate saddest sads in video game history, none stick out quite like the ultimate saddo of Saddington, Ethan Mars from Heavy Rain. He spends the entire game from start to end moping and moaning, bitching and complaining, not asking for any help from anyone, cutting his fingers off. And this is very strange to me because at the beginning of the game, when he's still got 2 sons and a wife who hasn't divorced him yet, he's perfectly happy. Come on, Ethan, chin up. First of all, only one of your sons died. You still got the other one. And second of all, your wife left you? So what? Boo-hoo. Here's another one for you. See, she even let you take her bra off. You're practically married already. And by the way, so what if you lost a kid? You know what the best thing about losing a kid is? You can just make another one.
Ooh, I was looking for that!
And the moral of the story is Prozac.
Hello, this is Uber Eats. This game is boring and tedious. 9 out of 10. Babies in jars, Conan O'Brien, The Sound of Music, and piss. What does it all mean? Well, I can try and figure it out. Oh, look! This game has difficulty levels. I mean, that's something.
Okay, fine. I don't know. But one thing I do know is my Death Stranding name. Apparently all you need to do is combine the last emotion you felt with the last food that you ate.
Then you just put man on the end.
And that makes me Horny Pizzaman.
As a Kojima fan, everyone is asking me what I think about Death Stranding, and to be honest, I have no clue. Why are you asking me? There's rain that causes things to age very quickly, swimming around a void and then flying into a baby inside a guy's throat, invisible monsters called British Telecom, handprints all over your skin, dead bodies that leak black fluids upwards towards the sky, golden skull masks, Norman Reedus crying over the most impractical umbrella he's ever seen, grenades made from your Wii. There's so much to absorb here that by the time I saw the name of the prologue chapter, I was convinced it said Porker. I didn't know up from down after I was done with this game. Oh look, I didn't know Psyduck was in it.
Death Stranding is one of the most frustrating games I've played in a long time. Not because it's frustrating to play, but because I found myself totally in love with the world of the game, and I was desperate to see how the story unfolded. I wanted to see where everything was going, how all the characters would end up, figure out what everything meant, see what insane monsters would appear later on. But in order to do any of that, that meant I had to trudge through one of the most tedious, repetitive, and utterly uneventful beginnings of a video game I think I've ever played. And to be honest, me calling my experience with this game the beginning, I think is being massively generous.
I gave it as much time as I could possibly stomach to allow it to grab me. In fact, I gave it 9.5 hours. 9.5 hours for it to give me a single reason why I should persevere. And after all that time, I was still doing the same rubbish and feeling totally unfulfilled, with not even Kojima's ridiculous cutscenes feeling like enough of a reward.
The one you've got there is a load-bearing AS.
Oh, I've got one of them!
Yes, I consider these one of the trademark brilliant aspects of Kojima's games. They're not for everyone, but I love the stupidly long cutscenes, and I was the most excited for these over anything else. The fact that the cutscenes slowly delved out more and more nuggets of lore and world building also tantalized me. These were the reason I kept on going, but they weren't enough to allow my brain to be engaged with what I was doing whenever I held the controller in my hands, and eventually, I lost it. One mission had me walk out of a room and build a post box.
Whoa, gang, slow down!
I carried my dead mum up a ladder and chucked her into a furnace. I burned my mum today. What did you do? What did you do today, Normus Reedham?
This isn't a Kingdom Hearts 2 situation where you have 3 hours of a slow beginning before dozens of hours of an imaginative and excellent action RPG waiting for you. And at least you do different things in the first 3 hours of that game, even if it is a little slow. Death Stranding probably becomes the best game ever made later on in the story for all I know, so I'm sorry if my opinions in this video don't reflect the rest of the game, but what I'm aiming to discuss in this video is that if nearly 10 hours of your life isn't enough for a piece of media to strike a chord with you, why should you carry on? I was giving it the benefit of the doubt after 5 hours of nothing, but 10? What I'm trying to say is that if it ends up getting absolutely incredible at like the 20-hour mark or something, then in my opinion it's failed totally in terms of its pace and with investing its players, because that's nearly an entire day of gameplay to get to that point. With that being said, this video isn't a review. I haven't finished the game because I'm only talking about how I didn't want to finish it after everything I've been through. This is more an impressions video of my first 10 hours. Yeah, 10 hours of a first impression of this game. And the weirdest thing is, this isn't even the worst game I've ever played. It plays exactly how it should, everything works, but the stark contrast between the intrigue and entertainment I got from the story and cutscenes and the bland misery I got from the gameplay supporting them was too much for me. I don't care if the entire point was to make the very idea of delivering items from one location to another soul-crushing and thought-provoking. It's still the thing that I need to do in order to uncover more of the engaging plot. The plot was like a chocolate fondue for dessert after a main course of soil. I honestly think I would have preferred a Death Stranding movie if most of your time was going to be taken up walking around an empty world, posting parcels like an Amazon Prime driver urinating in a bottle. If this is what postmen have to go through every day of their lives, goddamn, think twice before you complain about your Fire TV stick being late.
And I mean, I would absolutely go into more detail about the gameplay because there is a lot to go into, and I would go into detail about everything else. I mean, have you seen these visuals? Boom, 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 I want them in my room. It's beautiful. A lot of work clearly went into this game, which makes me all the more sad. You see all of this here? This is disappointment, and as we all know from experience, that is worse than any kind of angery. Oh what, you think that being a postman is a quick and easy job, do you? Do you have any idea what I had to do to get this to you? Picked it up and moved it. Yeah, I hope that hurt. I'm off. What the hell is in here? I don't even remember ordering anything. Thank you so much to the sponsors of today's... Oh, that's not Monster. Ah, wait a second, where were we? Ah, yeah, the aim of the game. Yeah.
What the hell do you even do in the game, though? It's quite simple, really. You play as Sam Porter Bridges.
Sam Porter Bridges. More like... Jim Tater Wedges.
And taking away the fact that he can come back from the dead, which ends up playing massively into the story, all he knows is delivering. That's his life. Day after day, you're sent around by higher-ups trying to rebuild America after a world catastrophe, but they can't do that without your unique skills centered around... delivering shit. Once you're able to reach certain areas, you can connect them into the giant communications grid, as it were, allowing them to not only keep in the loop with everyone else, but send and receive vital packages of their own in order to carry on rebuilding this desolate and broken country by using their own unique skills. The reason this is such a difficult task that not just anybody can do, though, is that the world, although empty, is dangerous, and nobody really wants to go out and deliver things themselves for fear of death. And if the wrong people die, how are we gonna fix Merc? The world itself not only attacks people and cargo with this rain called Timefall that aggressively ages anything it touches, but also has plenty of rogue camps out on the field full of evil people trying to stop all deliveries in the world, steal supplies, and capture the entire world for themselves. To be honest though, as far as I saw, they aren't really a problem. They barely put up any kind of a fight at all, especially when you get a projectile weapon later on. Also, after this mysterious mysterious event called the Death Stranding happened, beings known as Big Titters appeared on the cusp between life and death to attack any other living thing. You can't see them, you can't fight them off, and whenever they claim a victim, a huge explosive crater is left in their wake. This is why nobody wants to go outside themselves and reconnect everything.
So who is the best person for such a difficult job? I know! Postman Pat!
By taking any and all orders from everyone around you, you pick up boxes of important crap, throw them on your back, and deliver them to their destination or put them in a postbox for someone else, where you can then get more stuff to make your job easier and carry more important supplies to get to other places so that everyone can make new gadgets together and fix the world. You are essentially a human shield for the bigger and brainier lot using their inventions to try fixing everything from behind the walls of a bunker, while you risk everything sending it out. You're an expendable asset to a degree, and boy are you made to feel like that. If I can give the game credit somewhere, it's that you feel like someone being worked to the bone with the weight of the world on your shoulders. Oh, I gets it! Kojima's very subtle! And you at least aren't as fragile as a toothpick. When you're thrown into any and all stealth and combat situations, you are capable of defending yourself. You just aren't exactly Shadow the Hedgehog. Plus, that baby you carry around on your chest does have a purpose. It's not just weird for the sake of it. He can detect the location of invisible enemies and such, and you can end up carrying way more than you'd ever expect. In fact, you end up looking like a giraffe for 75% of the game, and it's so stupid. Here's the thing though, aside from the timefall being a constant worry, these moments of being hunted by ghosts or intercepted by evil people are so infrequent in comparison to the endless and tiresome amounts of walking and delivering you'll be doing. This is basically all of the footage I captured for nearly 10 hours of gameplay, and no matter how brilliant it gets if the curtain is lifted after a certain point in the story, it's still hours and hours of this. The best way I can think of it is that Death Stranding is Crazy Taxi, but without the crazy or the taxi. So it's just mad. The easier difficulty options may recommend you pick them if you have little experience in action games, but I can assure you right here and now, at least from the hours I played, this is not an action game. You can make any and all claims about the core of the game being the entire point, that the lowest of the working class are vital in rebuilding and reconnecting everyone in our world, how we take what we have for granted, and how the game is supposed to be monotonous because you're supposed to feel like a fatigued errand boy and sympathize more with the unappreciated people in our world, but at the end of the day, the game still wants me to play it in this state in order to reinforce the themes of the story, and I'd be absolutely fine with that if this were an indie experimental game that costed a fifth of the price and lasted me a few hours at most. I mean, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is one of my favourite games of all time that has barely anything in it but walking, but that is a $20 game that lasts for 4 to 5 hours and does a lot more with itself in that time in terms of world exploration and story. This is a $60 game that has you repeatedly doing the same painfully slow delivery stuff for tens of hours. In fact, how long does it take most people to finish the game? Oh yeah, roughly 50 hours!
What?
Take Shadow of the Colossus for a second. There's a lot of elements in that game that are similar to Death Stranding, but it all feels like it has greater purpose. Not only because you get a totally epic and unforgettable boss waiting for you after the long empty treks, but you feel the isolation and get the point that the game wants to hammer into you. It wants you to experience the downtime to strengthen the narrative. It makes you realize how small you are. You question if you're doing the right thing, and you feel everything it needs you to feel in 6 to 8 hours. That's how long it needs, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and provides a unique experience that isn't conventionally very action-packed or thrilling for a lot of it. Now imagine if Shadow of the Colossus lasted for 50 hours, and maybe you'll see what my issue is. Death Stranding succeeds in making you feel a certain emotion in its gameplay, but in my opinion it takes it way too far. I don't see the artistic value in making the gameplay as dull as it is for this long, making the scope this huge, especially when there's a very interesting story accompanying it that I'd like to see very much. And if I was supposed to question anything on these treks, all I wondered about was if there was an apocalypse in the future, would the only thing left be Monster Energy?
Monster Energy! It gives you the strength and energy to throw the rest of it away!
I can't even say it's like one of those truck simulator games where the entire point is to just drive for hours on end in real time, because at least there you know what you're getting. You're buying a simulator, and typically once you're set up in a simulator, you can allow yourself to zone out and just enjoy the minimalism and simplicity. You can relax here, and I would say the same for Death Stranding, except there's too much maintenance and babysitting going on, which never allowed me to enjoy my surroundings or get lost in the atmosphere. There's so many gauges, meters, menus, worrying about the state of your packages, stress levels of your baby, state of your shoes, stopping and starting to grab more packages and life-saving supplies, stamina refilling, building items to climb difficult terrain easier, and even a balance mechanic that you constantly need to correct by either holding each trigger down every so often to shift the weight of your deliveries on your back, or by holding both triggers down all of the time to keep your balance balance but slow you right down. All of this stuff in any other context would be depth, but here, it's just the game nagging at me when I'm already bored just walking everywhere. They were annoyances and interruptions more than management mechanics to me, and I couldn't get sucked into the world.
Furthermore, the names in this game are bloody dumb. Die Hardman? What's that about? We're just putting movie titles as names in our games now and then adding man on the end? Well, if that's the case, where's Shrek 2-man?
The first time in the game where I felt like any kind of meaningful stakes were on the line came in for me at the 6.5 hour mark. No, I'm not joking. That was the first time I felt engaged with the game and like I was affecting something, like I had to organically react to something. It was 5 hours before I found my first vehicle to make travel faster and easier. It was 8 hours before I could use a projectile weapon to deal with groups of enemies much faster. It was 8.5 hours before I could start building my own vehicles in case my current one got destroyed or the battery ran out and I couldn't build a generator at that time. But ultimately, these upgrades don't matter to me because whether you're using a vehicle, creating ladders and ropes for easy climbing, using exoskeletons to carry more and run faster, cradling your baby whenever it's stressed, or even taking advantage of the online features to give items to other players or share vehicles and even build new structures to make traveling easier, it's all to facilitate the same exact pedestrian gameplay you've been doing for hours and hours beforehand, but just slightly faster. This even extends to the side quests, which are just more and more deliveries, exactly what you're doing for the main quest. None of the new mechanics or upgrades improved my experience, it just made it less painful. As painful as some of the glitches I found though? No, not as painful as them. I mean, they're funny and everything, but they also totally messed up what I was in the middle of doing, so that's not great, is it, Sonny Jim? Jeez Louise, look at me go!
Also, Normus Reedum is disgusting. He uses the toilet, doesn't wash his hands, and then strokes all over his face. I know, instead of getting poo germs off our fingers, let's take a selfie!
Oh yeah, the online's a thing in this game, isn't it?
So much like how the game is supposed to make you feel totally alone and everything as an individual, there are some glimmers of hope in the form of other online players delivering other things at the same time as you, just not in your world, linking into the theme of technology and connectivity in the story. You can all leave signs for each other for hints, tell each other to not give up, build bridges for easy crossing of canyons, leave ladders behind to get across deep bodies of water, and even work together to complete construction of loads of different travel routes by chipping in your own collected resources. This stuff is all useful, and it was nice to see how far other people would go to make sure your own deliveries are made as smooth as possible, and I also liked being told to keep on keeping on every so often.
Keep on keeping on.
But if this was supposed to make me think about how amazing connectivity is and how social interaction is important even if you never see who you're affecting, no, sorry, I don't get it. Not just because you only do things for other players for the sake of getting more likes to increase your rank and get more items, meaning it's ultimately selfish, but in hindsight, it's also depressing because it only served to remind me that I'm not the only one boring myself to tears running around a load of rocks for 2 hours at a time. Not even the incredible visuals and use of music gripped me. It just made me think, I'd rather just go out myself, get some exercise, and look at the wonders of nature in real life. So I did. See this here? These are called the Wookiee Hole Caves. They're in Somerset, England, and became a tourist attraction once archaeologists discovered the bones of an old woman living inside them with a perfectly spherical crystal ball, starting the legend of the Witch of Wookiee Hole. The caves are genuinely breathtaking and are even right next to Cheddar Gorge, a colossal series of limestone valleys that reminds me a lot of Death Stranding's visuals. That's Keris. Say hello, Keris.
Hey. Did you also know that level 2 on the NES game Battletoads was named after this series of caves, and not after Star Wars like everyone seems to think? Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Back to peeing on a rock.
Caddy, what the hell are you doing?
Leave me alone! I'm pretending I'm in Death Stranding!
So we've all seen human enemies many a time before in other games, and honestly, yeah, I can't say much about them here. The stealth works fine, the combat works fine, the idea of them looking to steal all of your packages and you being able to steal their stuff in return is fine. So what about the more interesting aspect of the game, the BTs? What are they? What do they do? This is one of the things the game tries to stick out from the crowd with. Entire sections of stealth with invisible enemies that your baby can only point towards and flash your radar faster as they get closer. You have to remain still, hold your breath if they get too close, and it's all a bit spooky. Except it's not. Again, if these encounters improve as the game goes on, I don't care, because in my opinion it takes way too long for that to happen if that is true. Up until where I started stopped playing, these things posed barely any kind of threat at all and aren't that creepy, mostly because you can't see anything. Every single encounter of BTs for me wasn't a nail-biting life on the line situation, it was a delay. You know when you play Slender and whenever you see the Slender Man, you just need to go the opposite direction? That's exactly what you do here. It's a constant game of rerouting your sat-nav due to a road blockage you can't see. They're slow, not very exciting, not tense, and oh my god, if you have a vehicle on you, you can just drive by them without a care in the world, totally breaking this mechanic in half. The only part where I felt any kind of tension or panic was at this part here where I tried to bike up a rocky highland like a dumbass and ended up getting caught by the BTs. I lost my bike, a ton of packages fell off my back, and then I was randomly swept away back down the hill straight into the mouth of this giant squid-faced whale. This bit was fantastic. I was lost, confused, freaking out, and then I escaped the thing. Only to see my bike returned with all of my missing packages and nothing else was affected. It was just an inconvenience. Again, it was just a delay. And even better, after going through with all of this, I still ended up S-ranking the delivery anyway, so again I wondered what indeed the point of the BTs were. In fact, whether it was a side quest or main quest, whatever happened to me, however long it took, however far I travelled, I still ended up S-ranking practically every single delivery I did. I just kept on S-ranking. And that's cool and all, but I don't know why I was S-ranking, so every single one felt like a hollow victory. In fact, when it came to another part later on, I even let the BTs deliberately catch me just to see if I could get another one of those cool oily squid whales. And I didn't, but I got this cool wolf-looking thing instead, and I was stocked up on weapons to fight it, so instead of running away like last time, I was able to fight it, and I had fun at this point. I had to let the bad guys nearly kill me in order to feel engaged with what I was doing. The real funny thing about all of this though is that I tried being clever on the first boss. The main bad guy, Higgs, told me that I should let his pet monster eat me if I was tired of the grind and wishing for an end to it all.
So you know what I did? I figured, this is a Kojima game. The dude is famous for putting wacky Easter eggs and clever fourth wall breaking boss level solutions in his game. So I tried something a little funny here. I thought, how about I let the boss flatten me? And you know what happened when I let it do that? I died, got a game over, and had to restart. I thought that might have been the point. I thought I was supposed to be tired of the grind and figured I'd take the bad guy up on his offer just to see if something happened. Secret dialogue, a trophy, a new pair of pants I could wear in the game, anything. But no, I just got a game over. So in the end, in a game where I'm supposed to be fighting the bad guys, I ended up agreeing with the bad guys.
Like I said at the beginning of this video though, this emotion from me right now is all stemming from disappointment, because I can see every single thing the game does brilliantly. I don't hate Death Stranding at all, but I just don't understand why it takes so long to get going, or why it fights with you for as long as it does, and it just completely lost me. And when I mentioned this on Twitter, loads of people were telling me, oh, just give it one more hour, but that's not the point, because I'm giving one more hour of an already 9 to 10 hour journey that I didn't enjoy, so I don't think the game has earned any more of my own time. And personally, if I was looking for one particular thing out of a game, everything that Death Stranding had to offer me so far has been done better with a variety of other games already. Do I want a walking simulator that takes its minimalistic gameplay, organically weaves it into the story, and doesn't cost anywhere near as much? I'll play Firewatch. Do I want an utterly giant open world with ridiculous scope that allows me to traverse practically anywhere at my own pace? I'll play Breath of the Wild. Do I want to feel totally alone, but with the subtle online mechanics working in the background, centered around me being able to help other players in other games while remaining in single player, and with this distant sense of camaraderie as the other players leave me hints and messages to remind me that I'm not as alone as I feel? I'll play Dark Souls. Do I want stealth mechanics in a huge open world with endless possibilities? I'll play Metal Gear Solid 5, another Kojima game. Even for eye candy, do I want something that just looks breathtaking and nothing else, but also has better animations and realism as I react to the environment, and has a more engrossing truckload of gameplay possibilities with a brilliant story? I'll play Red Dead Redemption 2. And come on, seriously, those tripping over animations in Death Stranding are downright laughable, and when you jump around the world you look like a member of the Goof Troop.
Not even open. If you're asking me, the characters and the world are all that Death Stranding really has going for it, at least where I decided to stop playing, where I couldn't take anymore. Well, that and the BB noises coming out of the controller, that's pretty cute. Which means I'm not entirely done with Death Stranding just yet. I think I just might watch a couple of cutscene sets on YouTube or something. I don't want to play the game anymore. And while I'm watching those cutscenes, I'm going to be drinking Monster Energy, the sponsors of today's video.
want... Oh.
I love ending younglings.
Oh boy, boy, boy! It's a game that has all the younglings slaughter I want! Can I get him? He's got a very punchable face.
Can't wait to play with the Force. What kind of insane magic do you think we can do? Star Wars, the film series where there's plenty of stars, but usually only one war. I like Star Wars a lot. I'm not a die-hard fan or anything, but am I excited for Rise of Skywalker? So I figured, hey, why don't we take a look at that new Star Wars game that nobody's talking about? Jedi Fallen Order.
But before we get into it, we need to pick our difficulty, and I think I'm gonna go with Jedi Master, because have you seen what happens to the Grandmasters? You know something I wasn't expecting to hear in this game? Jedi rock music that the kids listen to on their headphones. Good lord, what do you think that's like? It sounds like someone being sick. My favourite! Okay, running around now. This is a lovely train, isn't it? Hang on a second, I think someone put the wrong game in. This can't be Star Wars. The stormtroopers are hitting me.
Okay, hold your horses. No! Well done. What is going on here? First of all, we're listening to Nicky the Hutt, and all of a sudden we're being attacked. Plot, somebody!
So this game takes place in between Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and Episode 4, A New Hope. The galaxy-wide extinction of the Jedi Order has already happened thanks to Darth Sidious, Vader has already been in command of the stormtroopers for a few years, and you are a Jedi in hiding. Ooh, like Obi-Wan. There he is. Hi. Your name is Cal. And you're a ginge. Disgusting. And while in hiding, you have a best friend at your day job known as which doesn't sound too bad with an American accent, but with a British accent, he's called Prof, and that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. One day, the Empire finds out there's a Jedi hiding in your workplace.
That's you, just in case you couldn't guess.
And after a daring escape, you hook up with a band of raggle-taggle rogues with a lady called Seer and a four-armed nightmare monster called Freezy Breeze made these three trees freeze grease. You find out that the Empire are looking for a special map that has the location of all the remaining Force-sensitive children in the galaxy, which means that if they find it, then the Jedi could face complete annihilation with no hope for a bright future. And so, by working together, you go on the hunt to reach the map before the Empire do by using your own ship to jump all over the galaxy, help Cal rediscover his old Jedi abilities he's lost over the years since the Jedi Masters were initially wiped out, and use Seer's ex-Jedi ability of being able to detect kids.
That makes way more sense in the story, believe me.
To find the next batch of younglings and restore the Jedi Order. Because it fell down.
This story isn't amazing, but it gets the job done nicely. It's not exactly that bad either, it's just nothing groundbreaking.
It feels like a side story because it is a side story. It's nowhere near as integral to the main saga as something like Rogue One is for a side story, but it does feature enough twists, sad moments, and badass moments to hit all the right spots for a simple-to-follow story that's entertaining to go through. The characters are all memorable and likeable, or hateable depending on what they're going for, and there's great flourishes in the story, such as how they paint the Jedi Order as an incredibly flawed system, therefore giving decent motivations to some of the more nasty people in the story. And there's even this great moment during one of Cal's flashbacks where you relive the moments right before
Execute Order 66
happens, where all the clone troopers turn on the Jedi Masters, and during this flashback you know it's coming because everyone's talking about it behind your back, and then during some training exercise you get surprised when you see a clone trooper suddenly aiming dead at you, which further throws you off since it just turns out he's testing you for the exercise you're doing. This is a great moment.
And I've got a little bone to pick with our main character, Cal. You know, the guy on the front cover that I said I could deck in the face. Problem is, at the beginning of the game, he has a little bit of a mouth on him. And he doesn't know how to shut it.
How'd you get here?
How'd you get here? That's a really big bug.
You are not approved trash.
I'm trash, just not approved trash.
Yeah, it took me a few hours to warm to him. He's not awful or anything, but to start with, he has something to say about everything, flapping his mouth off like nobody's business, not adding anything to anything, and for a while, his dialogue did feel a little bit forced. Well, I mean, at least he isn't anything like this Johnny in that old Star Wars PS1 game.
The rebel fighters are in range, my lord.
Oh no, Cal! No! What are you doing? Put that guitar down! With that hair, we don't need a Star Wars Ed Sheeran! Although saying that, Ed Sheeran looks like he came from Star Wars anyway.
As we get into the game itself, though, I have to apologise for something very wrong in this upcoming video. Some of the footage you're going to be seeing is around 30 FPS, and the rest of it's going to be 40 to 60. Because for a game about geniuses that can read people's minds and push things by literally pointing a finger at them, it wasn't clever enough to tell me that there's a hidden PS4 Pro performance mode in the options menu of the game.
And you know what? Let's start off by talking about that. Fallen Order as a whole looks pretty terrific, except for Cal's face. I mean, what the But as a whole, it does make you feel like you are in a part of the Star Wars universe, zipping and zapping around it. And not just because you're able to cut and slice the grass like a Jedi gardener.
Oh, that's why they called it Ground Force.
It just looks so authentically Star Wars, at least the original trilogy Star Wars. You know, that dank and swampy, rusted technology aesthetic. It looks great. And like the rock music you got to hear at the very start, you experience one-to-one more of the culture of the planets of Star Wars and how a lot of the flora and fauna react to intruders. Especially the hostile wildlife and how they behave when they're unaware of your presence. They fight each other and chip their own health bars down, they hunt other humans which can be used to your advantage, and hell, they even eat old bodies that perished only recently. Since the game is set between episode 3 and 4 as well, you get to see remnants of battles from the prequels on certain planets, as well as glimmers of what's to come for the future of the saga chronologically. It's a great mix, and the detail gone into the lightsaber combat animations are to die for gorgeous. I mean, seriously, look how cool this is. And I don't know about you guys, but I was left in awe the first time I used my lightsaber to light up a dark cave. I don't know, it's the little things. It looks great. Leave me alone. But the question I have to pose to all of you today is, well, is this worth the sometimes dreadful frame drops that can often lead you to death totally out of your control?
Yes, I'm playing this game on the PS4. Why not on the PC? Because fuck Origin, that's why. And I did initially buy the game on Steam, but then when I booted it up for the first time and it asked for my Origin account login information, I decided that Steam could go and fuck itself too.
But even with performance mode on and the PS4 Pro, Fallen Order likes to stutter a lot, and texture pop-in is a little too frequent for my liking. Is this enough for me to get angry? No, because I think the game succeeds in too many other places for me to get that furious. And I mean, this game is so vast and huge, it's understandable to a degree. But at the same time, this is such a reaction-heavy game, so a better frame rate would have been very appreciated.
You ever seen a place like this before?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's almost like it isn't even there.
The game itself is an action-adventure, and I haven't enjoyed a Star Wars action-adventure as much as this since Star Wars Bounty Hunter on PS2. If that game was the Star Wars answer to Tomb Raider, then this game is the Star Wars answer to Tomb Raider. Although I think Lara Croft is much smarter than Cal. I don't know. Isn't it a little dangerous leaving that thing on while it's in your pocket? Cal! Where the game shines though is with the combat. It's what you're doing for most of the game, and I really bloody enjoyed it. Dodge rolling, parrying, reflecting bullets, lock on targets you can switch between. It's all very Lords of the Fallen. You even get meditation pads to rest at that restore all of your meters and health packs at the expense of respawning all the enemies in the area, and you can even level up here with skill points you earn from beating enemies. To be fair though, this is more like Sekiro than Dark Souls. You don't collect points to spend on different attributes, you gather XP until you clock over one additional skill point, and if you die, you lose all the XP you gathered up until your last banked skill point. But don't worry, you can always get it back by damaging the culprits, and you reach them by utilizing many shortcuts you unlock to loop back to earlier parts of the level, so when you next need to rest, you don't need to travel as far to reach them. Sound familiar? Yeah, me neither! And by the way, you don't just have a lightsaber, but also force abilities you get throughout the story, meaning slowing enemies down, pushing enemies back, or pulling them towards you during all of your other tactical approaches to battle that I'll get into in a minute. And those skill points, they don't just upgrade base strength or defense, that's dull! You instead get a metric bumload of new moves to play with that can turn the tables in battle very quickly, or are just incredible fun to use. The game isn't easy, it's actually pretty challenging, but it isn't too hard either. It's a decent balance, but does favor more to the hardcore crowd than casual. Like, there's no stamina bar and healing is really quick, but enemies are sometimes faster than you, can stun lock you if you aren't careful, and hit you like a truck most of the time. You will lose in this game. This is basically Star Wars Sekiro, but just a bit easier. I mean, I lost on the tutorial if that gives you any idea.
Why did the game do the tutorials during my rest?
You know how I knew that I'd really enjoy this game before I played it? When I looked up the Amazon reviews and everyone was whinging about how hard it was. Also, like in Sekiro, there's minimal iframes with the dodging, meaning that the game is more about positioning your body during the combat and pre-planned rolls, since sidestepping only gets you so far, even when attacks are just about to hit you. You have to allow hits to come to you so you can time a counter guard, which sometimes opens up the enemy to a one-hit takedown, but often it's more like a tennis match of waiting for a string of parries by you needing to guard at the very last moment before being attacked, then attack back, and then parry in response to their counter-attack to chip down the enemy's stamina meter so that they can stop guarding you. Sometimes you need to bait their attacks, parry, and then immediately dodge their counter and attack them from behind, since their counter to your parry is too quick to even guard the next one, let alone parry it back. And with certain enemies, they can stun lock you very easily. Every enemy and boss, big or small, provides a totally different approach for lightsabering and best use of your unlocked abilities, along with the Force, which is great for use in crowds, like when force pushing a group of enemies off a ledge or when you slow down a melee enemy to heal, or take care of other ranged enemies safely while the melee attacker is slowed down. You even get the incredible double lightsaber blades for better crowd coverage at the cost of low attack power, and this gives you extra benefits like infinite blaster rebounding straight back to enemies if you parry the first one correctly and keep holding the guard button down. Even better, if you're brave, this upgrade is in the early game if, after you finish the first proper planet you explore, you go to Dathomir as early as possible, which is very difficult for this early in the game for the lack of health and upgrades you have, but once you reach the end point that you're able to explore to, you unlock the double lightsaber for use in every other point of the game, making the other more bearable planets that you could have picked first even easier, as you can deflect every single shot fired at you from clumps of stormtroopers with the infinite bullet rebound ability I mentioned earlier, when usually you just have to time each individual guard for each individual bullet to rebound them back with the single blade.
Much like what my masseuse said when she took my socks off, there's a lot to work with here.
Even the force meter to do force moves and the special high damage attacks I prefer massively to something like God of War on PS4, since instead of a simple cooldown time to get the force meter back up again so you can exploit the special moves over and over again, you have to land successful hits and get into the combat nitties and gritties in order to refill it, then rewarding you with the chance to use more powerful moves. The strategy is never as simple as spamming attack and rolling over and over again, or guarding and countering over and over again, or chipping down health and running away over and over again. And for most of the game, it's an extremely tricky yet engaging dueling system that tests your reflexes and attention to the max. And because of the sheer speed of everything, even gang encounters feel more doable than in something like Dark Souls 2. Some beasts can even hide in nests and spring out at you, or damage you heavily after you manage to slice them open, so you're constantly on your toes and you never know what's around the next corner, keeping everything fresh and exciting.
But that doesn't stop some of the bosses from being absolute tosspots though!
What I'm about to say does not apply to every single boss, but some of these guys have Dark Souls 2 levels of record player spinning in place as they track you right before they perform any attacks, sometimes even during the attack. And the teleportation in the grabs, my lord, this waste should be illegal, look at this! I'm totally down with more position-based combat instead of exploiting iframes, but when you're given absolutely no chances to avoid or get away from certain attacks, I make noises like a bull. This thing I found in a cave in the first proper level of the game was called Umbongo and was an absolute dangle for no good reason at all, and since he's encountered at the very beginning of the game, I'm sure he's the reason most players quit. He's relentless and every single grab and unblockable attack is potentially fatal with his broken hitboxes and teleporting grabs. I've got no issue at all with him being a high level enemy for the early game. Being two-shotted by him with my tiny health bar is totally fair, but that does not excuse his bugged moveset, and the real funny thing is that no other single boss or enemy from that point onwards is this difficult or broken. Nope, not even the final boss, who's hard, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near as hard as this angry frog slug for this point that you discover it. And why he's at the start of the game makes no sense to me at all. You know what he reminds me of? That troll in Dark Souls 2. Yeah, that troll. The hardest and most glitchy enemy in the entire game that they put at the very beginning of the game because... And because of this, I thought maybe I was supposed to come back to him later. But oh no, I wasn't gonna let him beat me. I'm as stubborn as a mule. Wait, that's not a mule. Yeah, I waited until I got the healing stims so I could heal twice during the battle, but once I got them, I went straight back into the lion's den and made some steak! Yeah, I like mine medium rare, pig! If you're stuck at this point of the game, take my advice. Stay as close as you can, only tap dodge to get away from his bites, roll away only at the red attacks, and make sure you roll only at the last possible second, because this twazzock will follow you until the very last second during the charge up. Funnily enough, by the time these things became regular enemies 10 minutes later, I had no trouble with them at all, because I had so much practice with dodging their broken hitboxes from the boss battle. But that learning curve for the very start of the game was unnecessarily brutal. By the way, why does Cal in the pause menu look like he's being told off by his math teacher?
Why haven't you done your homework?
Oh, miss, I'm really sorry. Please don't get the wolves.
Oh, by the way, what is going on with some of the enemy behavior? I don't mind them being aggroed when you're at a certain distance from them. It happens in Dark Souls and such, and it helps you manage large groups a fair bit. Well, I mean, minus moments like this. This is just creepy. I'm talking more about stuff like when they randomly decide to pop out of thin air and gang shave you. I mean, luckily this only seemed to happen to me on Dathomir, but still, what is this all about? How am I supposed to react to this?
I'm so angry right now. Nothing is gonna calm me down. Let me at your throat, you miserable sack of spit. I'm not angry. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you know what? BD1 has calmed me right down, and you want to know why? Because he's got one big dick. This little guy is like Sparks the Dragonfly to Spyro. He's your assistant. You could almost call him a buddy. D. He scans objects around the levels for heaps of interesting lore information. In case you don't know what a storage crate is, with a tap of a button he gives you a quick health injection that refills every time you rest at a checkpoint or get a game over, and after you knock down any enemy for the first time, he can scan their information, which directly gives you hints and the ideal methods of fighting them in the future if you found the enemy particularly difficult. Oh, and by the way, thanks so much for subtitling every sound effect he makes, Mr. Game. It's not like he's actually saying it.
Beep!
The vault? Yeah, that's where I was headed to.
Beep trail!
When you first meet this little robot though, you get to customize your lightsaber at the same time, and you bet your crack I went green as soon as possible.
Blue is overrated, get over it.
And once I was able to pick purple, oh my god, that's even better. Yeah boy, I'm Samuel L. Weasley! You also do a lot of sliding in this game. Like, a lot of sliding. There's so much sliding in this game. Why is there so much sliding? Is this Star Wars or Swanage the video game? Oh yeah, this is a Star Wars game, isn't it? In which case, let's talk about using that force. Now, this is one of the major things that makes this game definitively Star Wars, and once you mix it in with the combat, it makes everything all the more experimental and fun. You start off with the ability to slow down enemies for a second to get an easy hit in, but then force push to, well, take a guess, and then force pull, which can even give you the chance to grab some airborne robots and let BD1 hack them onto your side. Force push is easily my favorite by far though. You can push rockets and grenades back at enemies, and even upgrade it to push entire groups of enemies off the edge of cliffs for an easy win. And you may think that force slow is a little pointless to begin with, since the enemy speeds up again after you touch them, often leading to you getting hit, but I used it more defensively, slowing down enemies so that I could back off and heal, then charge attacking back into the fray while they couldn't guard me. These abilities also extend into non-combat situations though, like with puzzles and hidden rooms where you need to push, pull, and slow down specific objects at certain times to open other doors to other areas and get special loot. These feel extremely Tomb Raider-ish, and when I say that I mean new Tomb Raider-ish. They're a nice change of pace, honestly. Physics puzzles make perfect sense for someone with the Force, and it feels good to solve them since they aren't as blindingly obvious as you'd imagine. Some of these make me think a lot of the shrines in Breath of the Wild, actually. And hey, if you finish a puzzle and end up with nothing more than additional costumes or cosmetics for your lightsaber, BD1, or your ship, or even more lore information to scan, even though I loved reading all of that stuff and seeing all the costumes I could get, it doesn't matter if you don't enjoy any of that because you still get a dump load of XP to build up to another skill point anyway, so you get gameplay benefits for solving puzzles too, which feels even more like Lara Croft. And I really like how you're using the Force to listen to the echoes of the past. It's a really cool idea. Wait. Hang on a bleeding hole. Who's this? Uba Neba Noki? Is that Ed Sheeran's Jedi name? In fact, to further utilize the Force into the gameplay, they make the skill tree menu contextual by making you have to meditate at a checkpoint to access it, and the reason you've forgotten all of these moves that you need to unlock again is because after Order 66 happened, you have got more and more disconnected from the Force as the years have gone on. So the more you do in the game, the more experience you literally and metaphorically save up, and the more you're able to remember from your older Jedi days by meditating and concentrating to funnel that stored experience into a new memory, which also explains why older Jedi are so much more powerful. It's all about the experience and channeling that experience. Now it's just more literal with it being in a game. It keeps the Force as this mysterious presence too, instead of just this thing that you have, made even more mystical by the correct decision to make Cal already a Jedi when the game begins, so you never see him randomly get the Force, and don't see this random transition of, oh, this kid has midichlorians, so many midichlorians, that must mean he can do the Force real good. Oh no, Anakin, stop it! While exploring, on the extremely odd occasion, you can even get yourself permanent extensions to your Force meter, health bar, and an additional healing injection, so it's always worth searching the levels from top to bottom and solving tiny puzzles every so often to see what you can find.
Yeah. As it turns out, the loading times on PS4 can be pretty abysmal, to be honest. It doesn't happen everywhere, but specifically it happened a lot here. On the planet Kashyyyk, whenever you're loading from a foresty area to a more industrial area, and it looks so goofy because Cal just kind of vibrates in place while the world craps its pants around him.
Fallen Order does end up having a bit of everything in it though, despite the more obvious comparisons. It's got a bit of Uncharted with platforming and climbing around the world. There's some new Tomb Raider games in here with the exploring for hidden items and puzzles. There's Mirror's Edge with this insanely fun wall jump parkour system that very dastardly hides some secrets away from you brilliantly. There's some Dark Neo with its combat and approach to difficulty, and most notably to me, 3D Metroidvania. This I wasn't expecting to see, and to be fair, it's not the biggest aspect of the game, but as you grab new Force abilities and BD1 circuit upgrades, the game then allows you to go back to previous planets and explore far more than you could have expected with areas you couldn't access before. Sometimes it's for story reasons, sometimes it's optional, but it's always a good feeling to come back to an early area after being over overpowered and slice enemies in half that gave you such a hard time at the start. Or you could try solving the puzzle without the correct ability yet, which means you just end up aggressively touching every single door. Yeah, Cal, give that rock a good hard pat. I think it likes a good old pat. Much like other Metroidvanias, the levels themselves are gargantuan, and you'll be getting familiar with the ins and outs of the dozens of layers each of them have the more you fly back and forth. And since there's no teleportation function, you instead get this incredible map feature to help you link together all the different areas and shortcuts in the planet that you're on. Unexplored paths, locked doors, easily distinguishable floors, it's all here, and it's all pretty comprehensive and easy to read, reminding me a lot of Dead Space actually. Jedi Fallen Order was way more explorative than I ever could have expected. It really is massive, yet impressively, it's not too bloated or repetitive since each planet has a huge variety of different visually and geographically designed sublocations that all link together, making the interconnected areas feel like you're traveling through many of the different open stages within a singular giant stage. In fact, I even got a lot of Ratchet & Clank vibes from all the individual island venturing and ziplining over bottomless pits, and the idea of leaping from planet to planet at your own accord. It's got such an adventurous feel to it, which keeps the pace nice and smooth. The environment in each planet even has their own unique ways of telling you what you can jump on, grab, climb up or wall run across without being too in your face and obvious, keeping the immersion up. For those really struggling with the game too,
you can either pick easy mode like a big runny baby,
or you can always forego the experience points and scanning bonuses you'll get from fighting a difficult enemy and find one of the many alternate routes to loop yourself back around. Above, below, to the side, there's so many pockets and little caverns to discover. Mix this in with the lightsaber parrying combat with unlockable force moves and force powers for combat and exploring, and you have a pretty fantastic time, despite some of the issues that I've brought up.
And don't worry, your mum didn't lose that rug in the living room last week. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has it.
What is going on with these Wookiees, man? They look horrific. Well, whatever. The Wookiees may look wacky, but as far as the sounds are concerned, it feels like a John Williams Star Wars movie soundtrack. In fact, it's so convincing, I was surprised he didn't write the score. It can be emotional, sweeping, marching, foreboding, chaotic, cathartic, and uses plenty of the classic instruments you come to expect from a Williams score when certain scenes need to play themselves out. You know, there's the bongos and light percussion to drum up the mystery or suspense, there's the woodwind and brass bouncing back and forth for more cheeky and laid-back moments, and eerie ringing strings whenever you're hiding from something. There's always something new to hear, and it even dynamically reacts with what you're doing in the game, whether you're searching a new location for the first time or battling it out against a million enemies all at once. I was more caught off guard, honestly, by the high amount of moments the game decided it should let the visuals and atmosphere speak for itself. There's a lot of quiet downtime for a lot of the planets where you just hear the sounds of nature and distant growls of monsters screaming at blaster shots from stormtroopers, and it all feels so alive when it does that. It knows not to overwhelm you, and for a huge game like this, I appreciate that. It's also great to hear how casual all of the stormtroopers are despite the threatening murderous dictatorship they're working for, and how they talk back and forth with water cooler chat while they think no one's looking.
I'm hungry. It's reducing the quality of my posture and aim. Doesn't surprise me. An intruder? We killed a Jedi.
Even going as far as to act all confident and bullying when you start fighting them, only to get scared and nervous the more of the group you start to cut down.
Let's take him out. Can't top my skill. He's running scared. I think he's trying to run. Someone else attack him. We're out of range support. Stay back. Just stay back. Please don't hurt me. Is it just me?
I also really liked how whenever you move with the lightsaber equipped, it audibly reacts to how you move.
And much like how I feel about this hammer, this is really good. Jedi Fallen Order, on PS4 at least, does have a few technical problems, and as far as the whole game itself is concerned, without the errors, it's not the best thing I've ever played in my life, but I was not disappointed at all. I loved my time playing this. And I think it's about time that companies started taking more risks with kid-friendly material like Star Wars, and then making products and games with them that don't necessarily have to appeal to a more wider casual crowd, because this is more niche due to its difficulty. I can really appreciate that.
I mean, how could I be disappointed with set pieces like this? Or this? Or even this? And then you hijack it and blow up everything in your...
This really does feel like the blockbuster game of the holidays, just in time for when the new movie launches, provided that you go for a difficulty that isn't the easiest one. The exploration and stuff is totally fine, and the map feature will delight any completionist, but in my opinion, it's the combat that will give you the most enjoyment and mileage out of your time with the game. Sure, it'll be a little bit tough, but push yourself, and you may find that this is one of your favourite games of the year. And this is a Star Wars game by EA, can I just remind you?
You did done good, kid. You did done good.
You, know any jokes, BD?
A beep! Boo beep trill beep boo!
I don't know. Why?
Boo trill beep boo!